for Friday, January 12th. It's going to be that. It's going to be January 12th all day long. And so, look, we have a printer packed. We got all kinds of stuff packed for the trip to Iowa, and made sure that I got good travel snacks.
That's key.
Well, it's 10 hours up and 10 hours back, and man must have good, good travel squall line at some point, much like what you're seeing right now in Des Moines. If you've been watching the TV, the temperature on caucus day. The low temperature is minus 18. That's the actual temperature. The high temperature, depending on where the wind is, between minus 22 and minus 37.
Ugh.
I mean, that's harmful. It can hurt your weather.
Yes, it is.
You think you know how things are going to go, but then, it really matters about who's more determined to show up and cast their ballots in the caucus. So it'll be interesting to see how, that plays out. Again, this may be the coldest caucus in recent history. It will be so, and they're used to it up there, but not like this. Even for Iowa, this is rough. So they're getting ready for that. So we're headed out, and we got all of our warm gear. I've been told that I cannot wear flip flops, and
nice.
I've got extra warm gloves, and I'm mostly going to be in sweatshirts underneath all that. So I think I'll be okay. Just here we go. By the way, it's so bad right now. It's so much blizzard weather going on in Iowa that candidates are unable to get from one place to another. They're afraid to travel, afraid to get stranded somewhere. So they're doing events, canceled all of our in-person campaign events. And I think other people have had some in-person campaign events, but are not had to cancel some others. Look, it's very serious there, this weather. And again, everybody's looking at, well, what's going to happen in Iowa? If conventional wisdom is correct, and who survives, who does okay, who comes in, at least a respectable second. And right now, it seems that Nikki Haley is poised to do that. She is starting to surge, and certainly out of the race the other day. She seems to be the beneficiary of Chris Christie's departure. DeSantis is, really not setting the world on fire, and there's a lot of speculation that he's going to maybe make an announcement after Des Moines. If he has a really bad showing in Des Moines, then it seems like you would have to ask yourself, what's the purpose in going forward at this point? If I can't generate any enthusiasm about my campaign. So all of those things are in play right now. Rand Paul in Washington says he's not ready to endorse anyone, but there's somebody he absolutely sure he can never endorse, and that is Nikki Haley. I mean, he's pretty firm on this.
Good morning, everyone. As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm never Nikki. Libertarian or conservative should support Nikki Haley. I've seen her attitude towards our interventions overseas. I've seen her involvement in the military-industrial complex, $8 million being paid to become part of the team. But I've also seen her indicate that she thinks you should be registered to use the internet, that people posting ideas anonymously. I think she fails to understand who posted routinely. For fear of the government, they posted routinely anonymously. And I think her failure to really understand that, or to think that you should register through the government somehow for the internet, is something that should disqualify her in the minds of all libertarian-leaning conservatives.
You're welcome, and I will be, as a gift to Rand Paul, I'm going to be sending him a free windscreen for that microphone.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Man, did you not know that the wind was blowing? So anyway, he decided that they will not remove Trump from the ballot for now. This all has to do, again, with another one of those 14th Amendment arguments. It seemed like every day there is another state which is rejecting this argument that the 14th Amendment allows them to take the name Trump off. And I have a feeling that the Colorado Supreme Court is going to be handed a pretty hot note from the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, and it will explain to them in very short order, maybe even a 9-0 ruling, that, the list of states which have said that they don't want to consider this is the Oregon Supreme Court declined to hear a 14th Amendment-related case to remove former President Donald Trump, saying it will wait for a U.S. Supreme Court decision before taking any action. And up their appellate record by having some ruling that gets turned over by the Supreme Court. Judges don't like to do that. An interesting story, one of the more interesting stories that I've read, comes from the Gallup organization. You can read this at gallup.com, or you can read it at yourfarb.com. Political independents continue to constitute the largest political bloc in the United States, with an average of 43% of U.S. adults identifying this way in 2023. I keep making the case, and people get mad at me, and say, well, you're just being a rhino. No, I'm just being a realist. That if you want to win, you have to win a good portion of the middle. And when you understand, how Americans are divided by party and ideology, then you have to understand that to win the presidency, you have Democrats, but it's the independents who go one way or the other in election who decide who the president is going to be. So with 43% of U.S. adults identifying as independents, 27% Republican, 27% Democrats is the way it breaks down right now. By the way, the number for Democrats has come down. It used to be slightly larger than the Republican number. Independents first outnumbered supporters of both major political parties in 1991 and have continued to do so ever since. Might be expected since Democrats were previously the largest political group. Gallup asked respondents in each survey whether they identify politically as Republican, Democrat, or Independent. The reports are, as we told you. And then they go a little step further. They say, okay, for conservatives. Last year, slightly more independents leaned Republican than leaned Democratic. As a result, a combined 45% of U.S. adults identify as Republicans or they lean toward the GOP. 43% are Democrats. In addition, they asked their affiliation with they asked to describe their political views on liberal to conservative spectrum. In 2023, on average, 36% of U.S. adults describe their political views as conservative. Well, I'm an independent, but I sort of lean conservative. I'm telling you, there are many people who've been saying it for years, and it's true. America, by and large, is a center-right country. If you average out all of the political spectrum, we come in a little bit to the right of center. So, that's the good news. It's a more conservative than liberal. So there you have that. Interesting, because, you got to look at that and know that to win, it's the old saying, when you're running for the primary, you run to the right if you're a Republican. And then once you secure the primary, you sort of run to the middle a little bit to make sure you're not running off the independents who many times decide nationwide elections. Pretty good stuff there, I think. Interesting stuff for sure. So again, we're headed up to Iowa and watch to see and what after hearing from the pollsters and the pundits and Iowa has been a place where the conventional wisdom has been found at times to be wrong. It is a place where, you can win Iowa, and then, that may be your high water mark. I think second, and Ron DeSantis comes in third. It's entirely possible DeSantis may decide to hang it up. I don't know. I don't see, as I look at DeSantis's numbers right now, I don't see a pathway for him to become the nominee. But Nikki Haley, if she picks up Christie's numbers in New Hampshire, could be very competitive with Donald Trump. St. Elmselm polling has it Trump 45, Haley 31, Christie 9. But if you add Christie's 9 to Haley's 31, then it's Trump 45 and Haley 40, which, is competitive. Another poll has it Trump 44, Haley 28, Christie 12. Add the 12 to the 28, it's again 40. But there's a CNN poll out there that says it's win in New Hampshire, if that poll happens to be the more accurate one. And again, who knows what happens if DeSantis decides. So I don't know, what the purpose would be in them going forward. It'll be interesting to see what happens not only on caucus night in Iowa, but also on the day after, when sometimes tough political decisions have to be made and campaigns either pull the shutters or suspend their operations. By the way, I want to say once again a thank you to Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing and Charlie Daniels of Journey Home Project for supporting the trip and sponsoring the trip to Iowa so that we can bring you that extensive coverage. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. The folks at DT McCall have been around for more than 100 years as a family-run company, and you don't make it that long without having a reputation for treating people right. And they do. They have a huge selection of appliance, furniture. Honestly, anything you can think of. How many times have you paid someone to purchase, let's say, an appliance at a big box store? Then you have to pay extra for the cords and hoses, pay extra for delivery, pay for the haul away of the old thing. And by the time you add all that up, that good price that they quoted delivery or haul away, and you're never going to have to pay extra for the cords and hoses, they will not do that to you. And that's they just give you an on in England and all made in Tennessee. And the mattress line exclusive to DT McCall's is made in Tennessee. I have one of those beds, and it's a great mattress. So listen, why don't you find out about what they can do for you by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
A big temperature drop set for tonight. What could be a dangerous weather weekend ahead. We'll make sure and fill you in. And a person was found dead, drowning in a creek here in Nashville. We'll tell you where. Super Talk 99.7, 330.
Early next week, it's going to be pretty chilly in our area, so I hope that, you need to make all those arrangements. I mean, a couple of things that you need to do. You need to make sure that, if you have pipes that are exposed, that they are somehow, there's a trickle of warm water running through them so that you can keep them from freezing up. I mean, I went around and put the little styrofoam cups on all of my outdoor spigots.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
Did that, yeah. And then I got a note from the pool guy, said, don't, because I run my pump about 12 hours on, 12 hours off. Yeah. But if you turn the pump off and the temperature drips down to, 0, and the pump freezes, and then you're gonna tear up the pump. Yeah. So I have to put the pump on full time to do that kind of. So you have to think about those things. We have a little pool house that's not heated, so I put the little heater out there so that doesn't freeze up out there. Mm-hmm. The one thing you don't want to do is wake up and have water running everywhere.
No,
because that's a bad deal. So start thinking about those things. I've seen some stories. Let me see if I can find this story where I saw it here earlier. Yeah, the TVA say they're ready for it. Remember we had December 22nd.
Yep.
When we had that really nasty freeze just before Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have rolling blackouts because the grid could not handle the demand for electricity, and then apparently they lost a couple of plants went down because of the equipment was not handling the cold weather very well, and so they lost a couple of plants. And I'm telling you, that it doesn't take failures, and getting when the grid completely drops out. I happen to know this. I've done stories about it over the years. Is that it takes a while to get it back up and running, so that it doesn't crash again. So, that's why they did the rolling blackouts last time. And, then working on it. I understand that a lot of people are putting down, the salt or the brine or the chemicals to make sure that the roads are not slick.
Yeah, now that the rain looks like it's finally out of the way for us, I think you'll see a lot of those trucks on the roads.
Yeah, but right now, it's 55 degrees.
Yeah.
One of the things I learned years ago when I did weather is to be very slow when you say Arctic air mass.
Yeah.
Because if you get if you get that wrong, it comes out something about the anatomy of a mare, and you don't want to you don't want to get into, you don't want to say that on the TV or the radio. No, and so there's an Arctic air mass that's coming our way, and it's if you've seen the pictures in Iowa, that's where it's coming from up that direction, and it's that time of year, Breaking news, it's cold, or it's going to get cold, so be aware of all of that. I am packed up and ready to go. I am ready for the delicacy of Iowa, which I'm told reliably is the tenderloin pork sandwich.
Mm. Ooh, gosh, that sounds
I think
good.
It's sort of like chicken fried steak, but it's pork.
Yeah, I've seen some photographs of these. You have your normal size bun. It's on a bun. It's a sandwich.
Right.
So you get the normal bun, which is about 3 inches in diameter.
Right. I'd say, yeah.
The pork tenderloin that's in between the bun is like 15 inches in diameter.
It's the size of a big hubcap.
Yeah,
oh my
exactly.
gosh, yeah. I'm seeing these. Whoa.
Yeah.
That's massive.
I could take down 1 or 2 of those.
Yeah, it is the thing that people say. You got to find a place that does good tenderloin pork sandwiches. I had one time when I was in Iowa, and it wasn't a particularly good sandwich. So maybe I just got a bad.
Maybe
they just got a bad scald on it that day.
Well, if that's what they're known for, someone's got to have a good one.
Yeah, right? Somebody can point me in the direction. I have a feeling, though, a lot of places are, if it's minus 37, I think they're just not going to show up for work. I think places are going to close down. I think, schools are going to close down. That is serious. Minus 37 wind chill factor.
Oh, yeah.
Dangerous. Oh, my Lord.
Very dangerous.
That's where equipment starts to fail. Mm-hmm. When it gets that cold. So
I think you're going to be all right, because there's going to be a lot of media coverage in town over the weekend and into next week. So I think there'll be enough places open still.
Yeah, it's a lot of people coming in, and I remember when I worked at Fox, we would take charters. Everybody get on a charter and go out to Iowa, and then
you're not getting the charter out there?
No, I don't get a charter. I get a 10-hour drive. No, but then as soon as the Iowa was over, then you got on the charter and went to New Hampshire. Everybody got on the same plane.
Wow.
But I mean, right now it's blizzard conditions in Cedar Rapids.
Nice.
I'm seeing this pork sandwich is called in Iowa skinny. A lot of people in Iowa call it the Iowa skinny.
Skinny.
Nice.
I don't think it makes you skinny, but I think it's called the Iowa.
Hour 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
.331, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Mostly cloudy in the mid-state after it was raining most of today. 55 degrees now, and we got a big temperature drop expected starting tonight. Come Sunday, we could see single digits along with snow and ice going into Monday. Dangerous winds, too. A wind advisory in effect right now until midnight tonight. Could see gusts of up to 55 miles an hour. Got a full weather forecast and a traffic report. Tell you all about it coming up in 5 minutes. The Federal Aviation Administration will audit Boeing and another aerospace company's manufacturing process following an incident on a 737 MAX 9, which resulted in a part of the fuselage blowing out.
Boeing saying it welcomes the FAA's increased oversight and will cooperate fully and transparently with the agency. Spirit Aerosystems, which made the door plug which blew out of an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 in flight, saying it's committed to supporting the FAA's audit of production and manufacturing. The FAA
Right now in Tennessee, one person has died after a drowning in the area along 7 Mile Creek near BNA. A witness saw the drowning, called officials. They showed up and they found that victim deceased. In the Supreme Court, they'll hear a case that could affect millions of workers. It involves Starbucks and unions. Andy Field with details.
The case involves Starbucks workers in Memphis trying to form a union and that coffee chain firing them. The lower court had ordered Starbucks to hire them back while they asked the National Labor Relations Board to mediate. Starbucks arguing they could fire the workers for cause immediately.
News, weather, traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Time to head to the swamp, and we got all kinds of big news out of the swamp today. Did you hear about Hunter Biden? I mean, after this dog and pony show that he put on at his contempt hearing, where they were going, they sat there on the front row and effectively thumbing his nose at the committee. Now, abruptly, there's been a 180-degree turnaround, and Hunter Biden has apparently agreed to a deposition behind closed doors in any way to have an official impeachment inquiry. But now that you voted, if you'll just reissue that subpoena, we'll show up for the hearing. We will accept such a subpoena on Mr. Biden's behalf. The offer comes, however, for passing the contempt resolution despite Biden's insistence that he was willing to testify in public. Okay, listen, you think I'd say, no, the subpoena was valid, show up, or we're going to take a vote in the House of Representatives next week. I don't think, you say, well, they said they were not. They didn't trust the process. I have a suspicion that this is being driven not by Hunter Biden's president's reelection campaign. Why don't you, face what you need to do? Everybody does it that way. Why don't you just agree to do? And by the way, on the White House. So I think the White House probably put the hammer down on Hunter and said, we don't really want this to become a bigger. But listen, if I were James Comer and Jim Jordan, I think I would simply say, nope, we feel like the subpoena was valid. And by the way, we read your 8-page letter, critical letter of us, and, you can kiss us. We haven't heard exactly how it's being received by the committee, but I expect that now we will have a closed-door deposition with Hunter Biden, followed by then the dog and pony show, but he will have at least been asked all the questions. I mean, you know what he's going to do? He's going to get behind closed doors, and he's going to say, I take the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, I plead the fifth, or he's going to be non-responsive. He'll be completely coached. You are pleading the fifth. It means that, I'm pleading the fifth because I don't want to incriminate myself over things that I might have done that were illegal. So, you are sort of, in a way, you're not supposed to be penalized for taking the fifth, but in a way, that's the way of taking the fifth, and there's going to be a lot of I don't recalls. That's the thing. They get in there and they say, never, try to help the guys out by trying to remember. Simply say, I just don't recall. I don't recall. I don't recall. And again, the headlines are, he will comply, but I don't know that it's been accepted yet. After this 8-page letter where they, sort of trash everybody and then say, oh, and by the way, if you'll just reissue that, then we'll comply. I don't know that they have an obligation to reissue. Of Louisiana, who is sticking by a top-line spending deal he struck with congressional Democrats in the White House this month. They got a top-line agreement. They said, here's what we'll take, $1.6 trillion. But, there's a lot of work to. In the meantime, conservatives up on Capitol Hill, hardline conservatives, people who are deficit hawks, and listen, I think we need deficit hawks. Don't get me wrong; I'm not criticizing, but they are not happy. Here are Rep. Reeker and his desire to go forward.
Back into D.C., he had negotiated the terms of our surrender.
I want the Speaker to start fighting for us and fighting for the American people, which means we have to close the border.
You think this Donald's there at the end? There was Andy Ogles in the middle. Our top line agreement remains, says the Speaker. We're getting our next steps together. We're working toward a robust appropriations process, so stay tuned for that. And then he left the room without answering any questions. His statement did not stop some. I'm quite certain he is legitimately considering alternatives, said Representative Bob Good of Virginia, the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, this according to thehill.com. So the deal remains until it doesn't remain. But Johnson getting a lot of trouble from some of his conservative members, and there are some who are saying maybe we need to get another speaker, which I think is insane because you just can't do that. The way I read this situation and knowing a little bit about how these budget deals are worked, I think that by McCarthy that would be the top line number, and he's honoring the earlier promise. Now, he may be forced to walk away from these negotiations, given how much blowback he's getting from Gates, and then all chaos can ensue. But I mean, it might just happen again. And we can't, by the way, we really can't afford to go having treatments for his cancer. And so he's out of pocket. We really don't. If we lose like one or two more seats, the Democrats are going to take back over control of the House. So we really can't afford to go through all this right now because the margins are so razor thin. So razor thin that if there were a couple of people who died in office and that happens, some of these members are quite elderly, then it's entirely possible Democrats could take over and Hakeem Jeffries would become the speaker. So I don't know how far you really want to push that because if you do, you run the risk of losing properly track $1 billion in Ukraine military aid. This from Newsmax. U.S. government failed to properly track more than $1 billion worth of weapons and military devices sent to Ukraine, according to the Defense Department's Office of the Inspector General. Report released yesterday by the DoD's IG cited shoulder-fired missiles, kamikaze drones, and night vision devices that were intended as EEUM. Everything's got a shortened version of it. The program requirement for defense article accountability in a hostile environment. Failure to track the arms and equipment raised concerns they could be stolen or smuggled. Yep, and this is the thing, and they want more money, but they're not tracking $1 billion worth of weapons and military devices. Again, from an IG report over at the EPA. The Environmental Protection Agency did not report a staggering $7 billion in, hang on, trying to turn the page, in award-level obligations and outlays during the fiscal year 2022. This according to an audit by the Inspector General. The EPA Office of the Inspector General determined that the agency underreported its award-level outlays by $5.8 billion, or about 99%, and its award-level obligations by 1.2 or 12.9% during fiscal year 2022. The lack of complete and accurate reporting has also led to taxpayers being initially misinformed about the EPA's spending. They were spending money, they didn't want you to know about it, so they hid it from you and they hid it from Congress. Now they're being called on the carpet for it. And the Biden administration finally, it's enough. Enough already, enough. The Biden administration has been told by the Supreme Court that you cannot forgive student loans. You just can't do it. It's not legal to do it. And Biden just grins at the camera and talks about how many people he's already done it for and saying they're going to do it even more. The Biden administration announced today that it is expanding and accelerating its income-driven student loan forgiveness plan. Borrowers who originally took out loans of $12,000 or less and have made at least 10 years of payments will be eligible for debt cancellation as early as next month. The Biden administration noted how the new benefit under the SAVE plan is being rolled out months prior to its original start date, which was July. In addition to the $12,000, above the $12,000 borrowed. In other words, that you have paid it back, but you're still paying the interest. And they will then forgive you. They're forgiving you. That is some of the other stuff. But I don't know how you can continue to do this when the Supreme Court says you don't have the authority to do that. The Biden administration just doesn't care about the rule of law. The Biden administration is just going to do what the Biden administration wants to do. And, what are you going to do? See if anybody, does anything about it. That little body over there that calls the Supreme Court doesn't matter to them. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Getting ready for some extra cold weather in the mid-state over this weekend. An update in the Georgia election interference case with President Trump. Crime in Tennessee. We'll let you know all about it. 4 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 53 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. Matt Morey's over there in the newsroom. And there's Chris Weber bringing all the blinky buttons. He's got them under control over there. A reminder that this is Friday, so in our 4 o'clock hour at 4:35, we'll be doing our Phone Your Farb Friday segment. And, we really count on you to make that sort of a scintillating segment. We want you to have a good comment, a good idea, something you want to share, and then we do it again at 5:35. But it only works when you participate. Radio, really, we talk about social media being participatory. Radio has been participatory forever, and we love having you call in and have your say. So get your thoughts together. We need them cogent, coherent, and concise. Get to the point. All right, so that's all coming up at 4:35 and 5:35. How about this? Sam's Club. The folks at Sam's Club apparently are going to quit stopping you at the door to check your receipts. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's good news, right? I mean, I hate that. You just feel like, you think, it's like I'm being, like I'm a common criminal.
It's always an ordeal, too. Like, there's 20 people waiting in line, and one old lady, she's doing her best, but she can only check them so fast.
That's right. Yeah, well, but here's what they're going to be doing instead. They have AI scanners, artificial intelligence scanners that will scan your basket and compare it to, I guess, your receipt. And so, the people will not be looking, but the computers will be looking. They'll be scanning your basket.
Well, how does it know what your receipt is, though?
I guess you have to show it your receipt and a barcode on the receipt or something like that.
Walk holding it above your head so the cameras can
I don't know, but they will look at you and they will look at they will scan your basket, and if things match up, you get a green light and you can go. It's like, right, okay, I don't understand because like I go to a store quite regularly. It's a place where you get hardware and that kind of stuff. And I want to mention the name Lowe's. And when I go there, they ask you. I check out. I do my own checkout, and I'm honest about it, right? I mean, I'm meticulous about it, and I don't want anybody accusing me of trying to, to walk out with something I didn't pay for. So I'm very careful about it. And then they ask you, do you want a receipt? Do you want it printed, or do you want it emailed, or do you not want a receipt?
Yeah,
I choose. I don't want the receipt. I don't want to carry around the extra piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then you get to the door and they want to look at your receipt. I said I chose not to have a receipt, and I just keep walking.
That's really stupid. They shouldn't offer that as an option if they're then going to ask you for the receipt.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's take a look at the markets right now. Dow Jones Industrial down 118 today. S&P was up, but just slightly, about 4 points. NASDAQ was up just slightly again, just barely in the green, about 2 points. So mixed board here today. There was another one of those important reports that came out from the government today. It's called the PPI. Standing by from Beacon Capital Management for more on that is our good friend John Maxson. Good afternoon, John.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. Yeah, another inflation report today. Market relatively flat, but the S&P was up, and boy, it's getting really close to the all-time high. So, as you know, yesterday the consumer price index came in a lot higher, a little bit higher than what the Fed was liking, so the market didn't like that. But then right on the heels of that today, the producer price index came in, and that was unexpectedly less than what was expected. So it's kind of this tug-of-war right now between whether or not the Fed is going to cut rates in March or May. Sort of the betting money on Wall Street is that they're going to do it in May. So earnings season kicked off. The banks were good today. Airlines were not. There's going to be a lot of earnings next weekend that will give direction on the market.
All right. Thank you, John Maxson. And learn about all the things that John and the folks over at Beacon Capital Management can do for you by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 55 degrees, mostly cloudy now on Music Row. Wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight. 55-mile-an-hour gusts possible. And a big temperature drop coming tonight as well. It'll sustain over the whole weekend. Could see single-digit temperatures by Sunday with the chance of snow and ice. Traffic and a complete weather forecast coming up in about 5 minutes. The Fulton County prosecutor who's overseeing the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and several co-defendants facing allegations of an improper relationship with a member of her team. Now Republicans in Congress have begun asking questions. Here's Stephen Portnoy.
It's alleged in court documents by one of Donald Trump's Georgia co-defendants that prosecutor Fani Willis has been in a personal relationship with an attorney she hired to join the racketeering case. The allegation is that man, Nathan Wade, has been paid $650,000 by the DA's office and that he's used the money to go on lavish vacations with Willis. Now, House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan wants to investigate. He has particular questions about trips Wade is believed to have taken to D.C. It's specifically alleged Wade billed for meetings that he had with lawyers in the Biden White House, and Jordan wants to know why.
And that judge granted one of former President Trump's co-defendants a 3-month delay in the proceedings today. Crime right now in the Volunteer State, 21-year-old Jervon Kerchaval, a Zaxby's employee in Madison, was arrested yesterday after he allegedly took a picture of an underage coworker in the restroom. The 16-year-old girl was in the bathroom stall when she saw a phone go over the stall and take a photo. And that Kerchaval only admitted that he was going to post it on Snapchat. He has a prior charge of sexual battery against a juvenile. He remains in jail on a $15,000 bond. And in Texas, Governor Greg Abbott facing criticism after mentioning shooting migrants on the southern border on a radio show. Ike Ajaji.
On a January 5th radio interview with Dana Loesch, a former Breitbart news editor and NRA spokesperson, Governor Abbott was asked what else he could do short of breaking the law that would prevent migrants from crossing the southern border. Abbott responding by saying the only thing we're not doing is we're not shooting people who come across the border, saying the Biden administration would charge them with murder. Texas Democrats raising concern, calling the remarks unacceptable and dangerous.
Crime in Tennessee, 25-year-old Cameron Moore has been accused of pulling a knife on a guy on Broadway. It was Wednesday of this week. The victim says that Moore came up to him, asked for money and a cigarette before pulling out a toy gun and threatening that victim. Moore was found with a knife, now has been put on a $10,000 bond. And we were talking about that weather. If you have a flight scheduled for today or this weekend, I'd take a look at it. Over 2,000 flights have been canceled, close to 5,000 more delayed in the United States today as strong storms are hitting the whole midsection of the nation, mixed with the Boeing 737 MAX 9 still being grounded after that unused door came off in a flight. Alex Stone tells us just how bad it is today.
Ice, snow, wind, and tornado warnings are creating havoc for the airlines. Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, Denver, and Dallas are all under warnings, and all are home to major airline hubs. Chicago O'Hare and Chicago Midway have the most cancellations of any airports in the world. This guy's trying to get out of Chicago O'Hare and says he's about to give up.
If I do not get on that flight, I will go back home. Point blank period. And conduct business from home.
By far, Southwest and United Airlines have canceled the most flights.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for hour number 2 of The Drive, Friday, January 12th. Remember, at 35 minutes past the hour, it is Friday, so we'll do the Phone Your Farb Friday. Get your thoughts together. Cogent, concise, comprehensive, and what else? Creative.
There you go. That'll work.
Yeah, that's good. So we want to have your thoughts. So get them together. That's again at 4:35 and 5:35 today. Time for a little woke news, wokeness news. This story, I mean, I am so glad that I am not the parent of a school-aged child any longer. Because if this stuff was going on when my kid was in school, I don't think I could have handled it very well. I wouldn't have handled it very well. A history teacher at a Seattle high school, according to the Daily Fetched, reportedly told students that identifying as straight is, quote-unquote, offensive. Ian Golash, who recently came under fire for lessons on sexual orientation, told some male students they are the product of the patriarchy that teaches young boys not to care, according to a complaint filed by an angry parent. The mother, who chooses to remain anonymous, provided a copy of what is known as a social identity wheel worksheet that Golash assigned to his class. It requests that the students self-reflect on their identities, which included racial, ethnic, gender, socioeconomic status, physical, emotional or development disabilities, and sexual orientation. Why in the world are we having this kind of conversation with 15-year-old kids anyway? However, the parent said that when her 15-year-old son labeled himself as being straight, Golash told him to pick a less offensive term. And the mom said, well, hold it. It's completely inappropriate to dictate what terms a student can and cannot use to identify themselves. I mean, after all, we're supposed to be told that if you label yourself as something, you're supposed to have some respect about it, right? They're supposed to be respected. Well, not if you say you're straight. Golash admitted to telling the entire class why he prefers not to use the term straight. This is the nonsense that's going around. I think language has power and that it shapes the culture that we live in. I did say to the class in response to a student that I do not use the term straight because it implies to do not be straight is to be crooked, which could have a negative connotation. Wow. This is the stuff that's happening in classrooms today. My response about patriarchy was not directed at one student. It was connected to my discussion of systems of power that we've been having in the previous few days and the behavior of several boys in the class. I certainly wasn't making any implications about your household. I was referring to the system of power that we all live in. I'm telling you, I would come unglued if this was happening in my school. Boy, talk about being down there having a very frank and full discussion with the principal. I'd be down there the next day. Ohio House has overridden Governor Mike DeWine, also known as Mr. Peabody. You ever seen a picture of Mike DeWine?
I got to look him up now.
Oh, yeah, you got to look. Mr. Peabody. I remember when I covered him in the Senate. He used to be a senator. The Ohio House of Representatives voted to override Republican Governor Mike DeWine's veto of legislation that he does look like aims to ban gender-affirming care for minors and restrict transgender females. He's a Republican governor. He vetoed the legislation, and the House took the matter back up and overrode his veto. It's the Save Adolescents from Experimentation, SAFE Act, and Save Women's Sports Act override passed 65-28 on a vote Wednesday. The bill actually impacts a very small number of Ohio's children, but for those children who face gender dysphoria and for their families, the consequences of this bill could not be more profound, said DeWine, who purports to be a Republican and a conservative. However, the Senate is expected to vote on whether to overturn DeWine's veto on January 24th. Okay, so it hasn't been completely overridden. Just the House has done it so far. But the Senate probably will follow suit. Marco Rubio has demanded that USA Boxing reverse its course on its trans policy. He says, you should not allow men to get in the ring with women. Allowing men to hit women is just reprehensible. He urged USA Boxing in a letter obtained by Fox News Digital on Friday to reverse its decision to allow transgender female athletes to compete against women in the ring. USA Boxing says a fighter who has transitioned from male to female can compete in the female category under several conditions spelled out in the rule book. The boxer identifies as a female and has completed gender reassignment surgery. The fighter has undergone quarterly hormone testing and gives the organization documentation of hormone levels for a minimum of 4 years. The fighter's testosterone levels have been below 5 nanomoles per liter 48 months before the first fight. Rubio says this is nuts. It denies the scientific reality of sex. It endangers women. It upends fairness in athletics and diminishes womanhood by pretending it's only a matter of surgery and hormone levels. Thank you, Marco Rubio. We told you yesterday the oil industry was warning about Biden's energy policies and how he's going to leave us, unprepared to meet the energy needs of the future. Manufacturers have sounded the alarm on Biden's energy policies just ahead of the Iowa caucuses and says, you know what? Consumers are going to pay more. Here we go. Workers in Iowa Spring additionally outlined their inflation concerns, explaining that Biden's economic policies have not only caused higher prices in business, but increased costs of living. Inflation's everywhere. You can't seem to get ahead of it, said Iowa Spring employee Nate Setchell. A quick visit to the store is no longer $150. It's $300 easy every time with 3 kids, and that lasts a week tops. Inflation has fallen considerably from its peak of 9.1%. But it remains well above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. So the National Association of Manufacturers, NAM, released a report Wednesday about the cost of federal regulation to the U.S. economy and found that the total cost of federal regulations across the economy in 2022 was nearly $3.1 trillion, or about 12% of the U.S. economy's gross domestic product. See, when you hand business regulations and they have to spend money to meet those regulations, guess what happens? They pass that on to you. $3.1 trillion, 12% of the gross domestic product. The regulatory cost of manufacturers has risen from $277 billion in 2012 to about $350 billion in inflation-adjusted dollars, an increase of 26% over 10 years. And it's all a bunch of woke stuff that they're making businesses do. That's why it's in the wokeness segment. And then there's this. A group of Republican senators is urging the Biden administration's Department of Health and Human Services to rescind a proposed rule that would force foster families to affirm their so-called gender identity of the children in their care. Kansas Republican Senator Roger Marshall wrote in a letter to HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra calling on the agency to reconsider its proposed rule. The letter also signed by Republican Senators Tom Cotton of Arkansas, Barrasso of Wyoming, Lee of Utah, Mullen of Oklahoma, and Hyde Smith of Mississippi. And what the HHS has said that if you have a child in foster care that wants to identify outside of their birth gender, then the foster families must refer to those children by their chosen names and their identified pronouns. And those that do not abide by the rule will have the children transferred from their home. Seems like, any kid that doesn't like his situation could simply gin that up and say, I need to go somewhere else because I don't like these people. Whatever it is, I'll tell you one thing. There is such a need for foster care families that you don't want to put a bunch of onerous burdens on them. So I don't know. That is being fought again on the straight. Just some of the sort of woke stuff that's going on in the news today. I mean, it's like every day I could do this segment an hour long because there's always stuff that's going on. Always stuff that's going on that seems to suggest that, we are not woke. We got the DEI, we got the ESG, we got the EIEIO, we got all that stuff going on. And it just keeps coming and coming and coming and coming. And it is, I don't want to be ever, thought of as being not sensitive to other people who may be going through something that I don't understand. But by the same token, how can, like this teacher who's, spewing this nonsense in class. What does that have to do with reading and writing and arithmetic? Why do 15-year-old kids need to be involved in these conversations? Seems like there's an agenda at play in that classroom. Parents, let me just say this to you again. You need to have regular conversations with your children about what's going on in the classroom. Because, this kind of nonsense, if your kids don't tell you about it, you'd never know. Have conversations over the dinner table. Sit down and find out what they're teaching. Find out, what kind of stuff they're discussing in class that day. Make it a regular habit to do so. And if you hear something you think, that's just nonsense, why are they doing that? Look, in the state of Tennessee, I don't think we have this problem as much as we do in some other places, but I'm not going to tell you that it doesn't exist in some school districts. And that there's an agenda sometimes in the classroom that has nothing to do with educating our kids, but to trying to, indoctrinate our children. And so we got to be on the alert for it. We have to be very, very sharp. We have to be focused all the time. And when we hear stuff, we need to raise unmitigated holy hell about it. Don't be afraid to march down there and have a conversation with the principal. Find out what's going on. Don't be afraid to take that piece of paper that comes home that looks a little strange and you think, that what are we doing this for? Share that with, your good friend and radio buddy. Let me know what's going on in your classroom. Let us talk about it. It just really, it's not the place. And really, when you look at, especially in some parts of Tennessee right now, where what kids, how they're doing educationally, it's not good. Now, there are great schools, and I'm not trying to cast too wide a net here, but there are schools where they're simply not getting the job done. They're not teaching the kids the basic things they need to succeed in life, or maybe go on to have a college education, or to enroll in some kind of program, for a trade or whatever. They're not learning the basics that have set them up for success in life. And, we ought to be putting this stuff aside and focus on the real responsibility that educators are supposed to have, which is to educate, not indoctrinate. I don't know. I'm so glad my kid has passed that age, but parents, be aware. Make sure you know what's going on in your kid's classroom. Make that 20 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. They have smart care plans that start at $69 a month, and for that, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. If you were to marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, it could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Pretty important. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare is on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number, 599-6868. Again, that's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Dangerous winds, dangerous temperatures, possible snow. It's all coming this weekend in the mid-state. We're going to let you know about it, plus some money news. 4:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
24 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson. There's Mac Morey in the newsroom. Chris Weber pushing the blinky buttons. And again, a reminder, 4:35, our first round of Phone Your Farb Friday. It's my favorite segment of the week. And last week, somebody was so funny that they actually won the round.
That's right. That doesn't happen very often.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah, it does. We don't play the happy organ very often, because we don't do that very often.
You got to earn it.
You got to earn it. Somebody really tickles our fancy, then they win, and of course they don't really win anything because our bosses don't give us any money for that kind of stuff. But you get a slap on the back, a hearty handshake, and a very, very, very vibrant attaboy.
Yeah.
Or attagirl.
Or whatever it is you choose. Yeah. Sure.
Now people are going to be trying to be funny. And, when you try to
that
be
doesn't
funny,
work.
It doesn't work.
No.
All right. Let's talk about the border situation. Alejandro Mayorkas is about to be impeached. And now again, we just told you that, Hunter Biden now all of a sudden does this 180-degree flip-flop and says, well, I'll come in for the deposition behind closed doors. Although that hasn't been completely worked out yet. He's now saying that he would be willing to do it under some circumstances, but he still hates what Congress is doing. And there was an 8-page letter in which he castigated the Republicans who were investigating him and then said, and by the way, if you just reissue that subpoena, I'll come in. Now comes word that Mayorkas wants to appear at his impeachment hearing. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has agreed to schedule an appearance at his impeachment hearing. A DHS, Department of Homeland Security official, sent a letter to arrange possible dates for Mayorkas to testify before the House Homeland Security Committee on Thursday to its chairman, our good friend Mark Green of Tennessee. According to the letter, Mayorkas cannot attend the impeachment hearing on January 18th. Not convenient for him to show up on the day that Congress is going to be considering his impeachment. He has meetings with Mexican officials, but he's working with a bipartisan group of senators in a good faith effort to break the gridlock. Yet again, says Green, the secretary is putting the interest of Mexico ahead of the American people. Apparently, he needs to be reminded that Congress is a co-equal branch of government, and our committee, not Mexico, has oversight over his department. He said, I'm deeply troubling that Secretary Mayorkas has refused the committee's multiple requests to appear before a co-equal branch of government. For months, we've tried to work with his office to secure his testimony before the committee so the American people can receive some much-needed transparency about the causes, costs, and consequences of the unprecedented border crisis. We have given him every opportunity to explain his handling of the crisis. All of this according to the Washington Examiner. In Texas, the state police, the Department of Public Safety, the old DPS, they have seized control of a city park, and they have told the Border Patrol, you may not come in here. That's right. A standoff between state and federal officials down on the border. From the Wall Street Journal, the development comes after state law enforcement officials in the border town of Eagle Pass took control of the city-owned Shelby Park against the wishes of the city. Mayor Rolando Salinas said on social media Wednesday, the Riverside Park near downtown is a primary site for gathering and recreation. It's also become a hotspot for migrants crossing the Rio Grande from neighboring Piedras Negras, Mexico. After state authorities barricaded the park, they began preventing Border Patrol agents from accessing the boat ramp that the agency uses to launch patrols of the river. This according to an emergency court filing from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security early today. The filing to the U.S. Supreme Court says Texas also prevented Border Patrol from the staging area where agents evaluate apprehended migrants and from several areas where they previously conducted surveillance. I love it. I mean, they're not doing their damn job, so the state is just saying, no, we're not. You can't come in here. It's very rare to see, such a standoff. I would love to be right there, at the where the this thing's coming to loggerheads, where the state patrol and the Texas Rangers. Listen, you don't want to tangle with the Texas Rangers and the Border Patrol standing nose to nose. And the Border Patrol, I mean, the rank and file, they don't care. This is good, but the Border Patrol as an institution and a weaponized branch of the Biden administration, they care. So they're taking an emergency filing to the Supreme Court over it. Abbott, the governor, has consistently accused the Biden administration of not doing enough to prevent illegal border crossings and said the state is trying to show force. He told radio host Dana Lash that the reason the state isn't shooting people at the border is because, of course, the Biden administration would charge us with murder. Wow. I don't know. Facing criticism for rhetoric many Democrats said was extreme, Abbott said he was responding to a question about where the state draws the line with regard to legal authority. I was pointing out that it'd be illegal to do that. I mean, listen, I think we should be looking at the cartels as enemy combatants because they are violating the law and they're putting our national security at risk. But, the Biden administration doesn't really want to change things. By the way, the standoff is still going on Capitol Hill with regard to this. The Republicans are still standing strong, saying they're not going to give any money they're not going to pass a new budget until they do something about the budget. Do something about the border. And it doesn't seem like the Department of Homeland Security is all that interested in doing anything about the border. We should thank our lucky stars that Greg Abbott is the governor of Texas, and he's not putting up with this, stuff that goes on down there. It is 30 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 53 degrees in Music City. Rain, cold temperatures, wind all expected this weekend. A wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight. A possibility for 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts. Snow possible from Sunday into Monday. And in the Nashville area, anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches could happen. Your weather forecast and a traffic report just ahead in 5 minutes. The Justice Department plans to seek the death penalty for the top supermarket shooter Peyton Gendron just months after he received his life sentence on state charges for the massacre. Karen Travers has the latest from the White House.
President Biden campaigned to abolish the federal death penalty, but the White House is not commenting on this decision by the Justice Department to seek the death penalty for the Buffalo supermarket shooter Peyton Gendron. Spokesman Jeremy Edwards tells ABC the president has long talked about his views on the death penalty broadly, but the White House leaves it to the appropriate authorities to speak to individual cases and sentencing decisions. Edwards says the president continues to pray for the victims of the shooting, calling it an unspeakable act of violence.
The Biden administration rolling out a new student debt relief program. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona says it's aimed at helping borrowers who took out smaller loans, around $12,000, and are still struggling to pay it off 10 years later. Now over to some more money news. Here's Daria Albinger.
From ABC News, Wall Street now. Stocks drifted to end the week, closing flat for the day. The Dow was off a fraction. The Nasdaq and the S&P were up a fraction. The axe is coming down hard on 20,000 jobs at Citigroup. After a big drop in profits last quarter, the move is expected to save $2.5 billion. J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America are also dealing with the lingering effects of higher interest rates and the industry costs of last year's banking crisis, which led to the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Wholesale inflation fell last month for the third month in a row. The government's producer price index, which tracks prices before they reach consumers, dropped 0.1%. The FAA is stepping up its oversight of Boeing and says it will audit the production of the 737 MAX jet after a panel blew off an Alaska Airlines plane in mid-flight last week. It was the latest in a series of mishaps.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC. Now, we got cold weather coming. And if you find that you have a heating system that's just not getting the job done, it's been acting sort of hinky lately, maybe you wake up and it's cold and you say, well, the thing has finally died. Call the people I would call. 615-775-7833. That's the number to Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. And they will buzz right over to your house and get you up and running as soon as possible. But listen, the way you avoid these problems is to have preventative maintenance. And that's what the Beehive Club is all about. Become a Beehive Club member for as little as $99. Then you'll get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, and one aimed at plumbing. Never any overtime charges, 24/7, and 10% off all repairs. It's the way to go. I mean, I'm a member, and I'm very glad it's played off so many times for me. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know what time it is? It's time. It's that time on Friday, my favorite time, a little thing we like to call Phone Your Farb Friday. Yeah, what's on your mind? I mean, do you have a bee in your bonnet? Do you have a burr under your saddle? Do you have a bug in a place where I hope you really never, ever have a bug? Just get on our 100,000-watt soapbox and express yourself within boundaries, because it is a family show. We don't want to have to use the little red button. Okay, I mean, maybe you want to take umbrage. Maybe you have something that you feel like, that we're missing in the news. Maybe you just, you got something that will make us have a hearty chuckle, whatever it is. Get on the line right now. We got a lot of phone lines open, 615-737-9986. And while we're waiting for those phone calls to come in, we'll start with Ben in Nashville. Ben, good afternoon. You're on with Brian on The Drive.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. Thanks for taking my call.
Absolutely.
I heard you mention Mark Green earlier, and his name caught my eye last week in a news report about members of Congress and how they did last year in 2023 calendar year in the stock market, because Mark Green's name was right up at the very top of members of Congress and how they performed in the stock market. He did, according to the report, 4 times better than the S&P 500.
Yeah, his investments went up 122%. I remember the story, yes. But your larger point is that bothers you?
Well, I was just wondering what you thought about that.
Well, we talked about it on the program. I mean, here's what I know is that he says he has somebody who handles all of his investments for him. He doesn't have any information. He doesn't make any decisions about trades. The way that he's done it is he says, I continue to make investments, and they make investments, and they make trades on my behalf, and I'm only informed about it later. So is there anything wrong with that? I mean, I wish I had his money guy, because his money guy must be pretty good, but I don't know that there's anything untoward about it. We have talked about it, but if he's not actively involved in making the trades or sharing information, then I don't know what the problem is. To me, it's just that he's got a very good guy making very good investments. Look, when you run for a political office, you have to, sort of separate yourself from your investments. And this is what a lot of people do. Some people have better money people than others, but I don't know that there's anything inappropriate about it. But, man, I wish I had that kind of success in the market. That's for sure.
Yeah, Brian, I feel the same way. I think the best way to assure, I want to take him at his word, right?
Yeah.
I think the best way to assure that he's telling the truth about that is to put that into law. These laws come up every year. People propose them to make sure that members of Congress cannot trade individual stocks, do have to divest, and have a money manager that they don't communicate. I would wonder what you would think about supporting that, and I would especially wonder what Mark Green and the rest of the Tennessee delegation would think.
Well, listen, I'm all in for transparency, and that's why they have these reports, and we wouldn't know about it if he hadn't filed the proper report. So, anything that brings transparency, I'm for it. I do think that there are people that perhaps don't operate in the same way that he has operated, and I think that concerns me, and that, of course, that usually catches the attention of folks. But as far as I know, I have no reason not to take him at his word that he doesn't have any notification about anything until after the trade is made. So it's being done on his behalf without his actively being involved in the trading process. Thanks for the call, Ben. Appreciate it. Listen, we got a lot of phone lines open right now. 615-737-9986. What's on your mind out there? Why is everybody being so shy? Love to have some first-time callers. Mary, out on the road. You're up with Brian on the drive. What's going on with you, Mary?
Well, you were talking earlier about let people know what's going on in your local schools. So my 29-year-old daughter informed me that on TikTok there was where you could stay after school, sign up for the program. It was a Learn About Satan program in Memphis. I thought she was crazy, but later, maybe 2 days later, this was about mid-December, they actually talked about it on WBBJ TV in Jackson, saying that was something that was true, that you can sign up for an after-school Satan program.
Wow. Yeah, there's been some talk about that, and the problem is, boy, do I want that? No, I don't want that. But if you say then this group can't do that, then where do you draw the line? Then for other things that you might support. I don't know. In my mind, in my estimation, it's a horrible sign of where we are as society today. I do sort of understand the quandary. I mean, for example, I know that there are many churches that use schools. They use schools, when they're just starting out because they don't have a church building. And then, they grow and they grow and they eventually maybe, there's one right here in Watertown that started in the middle school and has now moved into its own church. But if it hadn't been for the schools being available to them, so, if you say to the Satanist people, you can't have your club, then do you then have to then also tell the people who want to start a church and use the school on the weekend that they can't be there? It's a quandary, I suppose. But, you're right. It is troubling that there's any interest in something like that at all. Mary, thank you for the call. Greatly appreciate it. Al in Sladen. Hello, Al. You're on with Brian on the drive. What's on your mind, Al?
Hey, Brian, I'm going to try to convince you to go to Florida instead of Iowa, because you're not on TV. Nobody would never know the difference, and I'm sure you could wing it.
So I go to Florida instead. I go south instead of going north and west, and then just tell everybody I'm in Iowa, right? Is that what's in?
Yeah, and just interview some random people off the street, ask them who they're for.
Yeah, no, I listen. I understand. Look, it is going to be cold there, and the real thing I'm sort of interested to find out is exactly how this might impact, the turnout in Iowa. Matt Murphy asked me, "Are you sure you're going to be okay driving?" Look, when you have been in the news business as long as I have, you have to go places and do things no matter what the weather. Sometimes the weather is a story, and you still got to go out in it. And I just have become pretty good over the years of knowing how to navigate that stuff. I've driven in Category 5 hurricanes. I have driven in blizzards, more blizzards than I can care to tell you. And you just keep plowing along and do your very best and try to take it. But I mean, a wind chill factor of, let's say, minus 27, that's painful. And I'm wondering what kind of impact it's going to have on caucus turnout. But thank you for the call. I think I still have to go to Iowa, although I like your idea a lot. How about Greg in Macon? Greg, you're on with Brian on the drive. Tell me what's on your mind today, Greg.
Thank you, Brian, for taking my call. I'm a longtime listener, and I just wanted to say I miss Phil so much. And all the guys there at 99.7 they're great. And I appreciate when Pam gets on there too. So my point today is I was just wondering if you know anything about the implementation of the United Nations program for carbon sequestration and the proposed pipelines they have. They want to dig and they want to put in the ground, and the storage facilities and these things. I think it's already happening, and there's been some accidents with I think at least one with a pipeline, a carbon pipeline, and all in all, where this thing is going is it's going into even more United Nations control of our precious blessed land.
I don't know anything about the United Nations project. I do know this idea of carbon sequestration is being tried out in some areas, and it's where you capture carbon, the stuff that would be considered by the Greens to be a greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide especially. And then you pipe it into the ground, and it's stored in massive underground caverns and the like, and that's the way you keep it from escaping into the environment. And I don't know a great deal about how it works, except it's sort of like the idea of the petroleum reserve. There you pipe oil into the ground and you hold it until you need it, and these big salt domes. So I think that's the way it works. Don't know much about it, but I will tell you this: that it's one of these ideas that the Greenies have come up with, and it's just nuts, the stuff that they keep trying to impose upon us in the name of saving the environment. Trying to push us toward electric cars and that kind of stuff. The problem is that people just don't want it, and they don't have a grid that can support it, etc. So. Listen, a lot of their ideas are just, I think some of them mean well, but they really haven't really thought the whole thing through. And it turns out that a lot of these ideas they come up with are simply unworkable. I don't know if this is one that works or not. All right, we'll leave it right there. 50 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I want to talk to you today about gold, which has been used as money for millennia, a tried and true store of value consistent across generations. Generational wealth has three components: land, art, and precious metals. Land and art can be hard to evaluate, but precious metals like gold, platinum, and silver, they're practical solutions. They're tangible. You can hold them in your hand. It has always had value. You know, inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money. Gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. So why don't you try them? If you have gold maybe that was given to you and you are not sure what it might be worth, maybe you're just curious to learn more about precious metals. Well, listen, you can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. They are always available to discuss your options, educate you on the precious metals market. Do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin. Set up your one-on-one appointment by going to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com.
An update on Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his undisclosed hospitalization. Some crime here in Tennessee. An update on a story that we've been talking about you. And a home in Tennessee gets struck by lightning. We'll tell you the condition of that home. 5 o'clock, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 57 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We really haven't covered this a lot, but it's been going on behind closed doors. Dr. Anthony Fauci has been deposed for a couple of days in a row by the committee that's been looking at to find out, exactly what was going on back during the pandemic with Fauci, and was he suppressing information? Was he trying to keep things from the American public? He's now 83 years old, and he made a startling revelation in a closed-door interview with the House Select Committee, according to Fox News. He testified that the lab leak hypothesis, which was often suppressed and actively sometimes by him, was not a conspiracy theory, and that the policies and mandates he promoted may increase vaccine hesitancy in the future. This, according to committee chair Brad Winstrup, a Republican of Ohio, writing on Wednesday. Winstrup's committee's been investigating whether government officials at the time, including Fauci, worked to suppress questions about whether the pandemic was the result of a lab leak in Wuhan, China. Republicans have accused those officials of pushing the natural origin theory in a bid to protect China, or perhaps to cover up the activities of Fauci, as I would add. He became a politically polarizing filter, vilified because of the lockdowns, masking rules, and vaccine mandates. And then the question was, well, where did this whole thing about social distancing come from? And he said, I don't know. It just sort of showed up. It just showed up. Many schools across the country were shuttered in order to comply with the 6-foot rule. And as it turns out now, there's not apparently a lot of evidence that it did any good. And he's not really sure where the idea came with, but they certainly adopted it and imposed it on everyone. Look, a lot of the things that we were all talking about back then is saying, this doesn't sound right. Turns out we were right, and they were wrong. It was 58 minutes now, past the hour of 4 o'clock. Make it 59 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, how you faring in the rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance, and it starts with a phone call to this number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. You have nothing really to lose except for the worry that you have. So get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. The number again, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 52 degrees and a wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight, with 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible across the mid-state. And a big temperature drop coming tonight. That'll happen. That'll sustain over the weekend. Could see single-digit temperatures on Sunday and Sunday into Monday. A chance for snow and ice, and looking like in the Nashville area, anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches possible. We'll keep you updated with this right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Latest traffic report, weather forecast on the way in 5 minutes. The first public comments from President Biden on Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and his undisclosed hospitalization. Karen Travers brings us details.
President Biden said Friday he has confidence in his Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, but when asked if it was a lapse in judgment for Austin to not inform him he was hospitalized, the president said yes. These are the first public comments by the president about the situation surrounding the Defense Secretary. The White House acknowledged it took several days for the president and his senior staff to learn Austin was hospitalized, and for 5 days the president was unaware unaware of the specific reason, only learning Tuesday that Austin had received a cancer diagnosis in early December.
Right now in Tennessee, the man who was accused of robbing 2 women at gunpoint posing as an Uber driver last weekend was arrested last night in Portland, Tennessee. 44-year-old Myron Hughes was captured using a license plate reader. Hughes told the woman that it was his wife in the picture, and she was sick, and said that she was sick, so he was just driving for her. And since the license plate matched the Uber app, the woman agreed to the ride. Hughes then admitted he got lost, pulled a handgun on them, told them to leave everything they had in the vehicle and get out. He then drove away. He's now been booked into Davidson County Jail overnight, facing 2 aggravated robbery charges, and has a bail set at $76,000. Staying here in Tennessee, a husband and a wife were inside of their Gallatin home this morning when it got struck by lightning. Channel 4's Marissa Sulik tells us how they're dealing with it.
The good news right now is the couple, both of them, are okay, but this is the damage they are dealing with. And you can see from the outside right here, you could see that frame of the roof. The siding was just completely ripped off, exposing that wood. And now they have debris on their ground. But the inside, that is a different story. Check this out. It knocked out their drywall, and you can see the insulation was ripped out from it. The power was also all blown out, too. The sockets are now black, and they will be out of power for a while. It's going to take a lot of work to redo the wiring. Now, as for the husband, Curtis said he was in the kitchen. His wife was closer to the strike. She was in their home office upstairs.
They were both uninjured, and they will have to live somewhere else as repairs on that home continue. Right now in Tennessee, the Nashville Fire Department working to recover a body that was found in the Cumberland River this afternoon. A witness saw a body face down in the water under a bridge and led them to call officials. Metro Police turned that body over and confirmed that assumption. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. Beginning of hour number 3 of The Drive on Friday, January 12th. How you doing out there? Are you enduring this weather? Oh, my gosh. It's earlier today. I mean, it's like the rain was blowing sideways. It was sort of ugly. I mean, even though it's only in the 50s right now, we are expecting the temperatures to plunge down and get a little colder here.
Yeah, I think it's already down around the freezing mark over in Memphis.
Is that right? So it's coming our way. That Arctic air mass is coming our way, and and when it gets here, we're going to see the temperatures plunge as well. I don't know. I don't like the idea of clashing air masses like that, where it's cold, bitterly cold, and it's running into. Well, I mean, for January at 52 degrees is not bad.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so, it was 55 degrees earlier. I don't like it when those things clash. That always makes me wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah, I had a bit of a concern. I think it was late morning this morning. I had some thunder and lightning in my neck of the woods, and I thought, we don't need that.
Yeah, it was the same up here in bucolic Watertown. Same thing going on. It was like, well, that didn't sound good.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the weather was, sort of unpleasant. You had to get out. I had to load out the truck for the trip to Iowa this morning early, and as I did that, he was like coming down sideways, and the winds were really blowing. Right now not too bad. I just stepped out a moment ago, out here from my studio, and it wasn't too bad. But I mean, I know it's coming. I am of course headed to Iowa on tomorrow morning. I leave at 0400. For the lovely 10-hour drive across some of the most barren parts of the American landscape to go to Iowa.
Yes.
I'll be going through St. Louis.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. And then get into Iowa and then arrive there, if everything goes well, about 2 o'clock. And then I'm going to, try to get the lay of the land, get set up, and begin gathering, hopefully, the sound that I'll need for the show on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not you think it's going to be bad here. And I don't mean to, whine about this, but I'm gonna. On caucus day, the low temperature, the overnight low is minus 18. Okay, that's the actual air temperature, minus 18.
Yeah.
And then it will rise throughout the day, about 2 o'clock, hit a minus 3.
How can it? That just makes no sense. It's hard to imagine temperatures not even being zero.
Above, zero. No. And then the wind chill factor, when you figure in the wind chill factor, the feel-like temperature, they say is between minus 22 and minus 37. That's why in the world was I decided that I needed to go to Iowa?
Yeah, and on top of that, I think they're getting like a foot of snow today.
Yeah, there's a lot of snow there today.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of the candidates have found it's unable to move around the state, so they're doing their events, by Zoom call, because they just can't get there. And one thing you don't want to do is, if you're a candidate, is get your bus stuck somewhere in the state where you can't get back and continue your campaign. And they want to be in the big metropolitan area of Des Moines as much as possible. So I think most people are sticking around Des Moines, and then they might otherwise go out to Cedar Rapids, or they might go up to Sioux City, or some of these other cities in the state of Iowa.
So they'll be in the state, they just won't be making their way throughout the state.
Yeah, no, they're staying close to home right now, because it's just, it really is a blizzard. It's really coming down there. I saw a picture that indicated it was at least knee deep.
Ooh,
the snow was
fun.
So and again, that's what I'm headed into. Look, the one thing I'm beginning to wonder about this is exactly how much impact it might have on the turnout. The Iowans are hardy folk, but when you're talking about a wind chill factor of minus 37, will you really venture out to cast your vote? This may be one of the lowest turnout caucuses in modern history, because people just honestly may not want to venture out into the weather. So and then if that's the case, then how does that impact the actual outcome of the caucus? Right now, if you look at the numbers, and if the numbers are even close to being correct, it's expected to be a pretty good night for Donald Trump. The real question, I think, is who comes in second. And right now, it looks like that will fall into the lap of Nikki Haley. DeSantis' numbers are crashing. I hate to say it, but he's not really setting the world on fire. And he there's a lot of speculation that if he has a poor showing in Des Moines on Monday, that he may well decide to just pack it up and suspend, like Chris Christie did, his campaign. Ramaswamy believes that there's a grand conspiracy and that Nikki Haley and that Ron DeSantis will team up as Nikki Haley is the president and Ron DeSantis as her running mate. I don't see that happening. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it would be interesting to see then would it recast the numbers, because everywhere you look right now, Trump's ahead. So look, here's what probably I think is going to happen, and then we'll see if we're right. Trump wins outright, but Nikki Haley comes in with at least a respectable second place. She then goes to New Hampshire, and in New Hampshire, the polls show it a lot tighter than you might imagine. This is the only place where it really seems to be tight. Haley has put a lot of her eggs in the New Hampshire basket, and she's spent a ton of money there, and she's got it because her campaign is being funded by the Koch brothers. So, for example, St. Elmsam College says it's Trump 45, Haley 31. Now, that's still a Trump with a 14-point lead or something like that? Yeah. But Christie is out, and he was polling third. He had 9. Assuming that all the people who were going to support Christie will now move toward Haley, and there's some indication that the Christie folks are lining up behind Haley, then it would be Trump 45, Haley 40, if that's correct. DeSantis 6, Ramaswamy 6. There's a local TV station that has a poll out there that has roughly the same thing, Trump 44, but they have Haley at 28, Christie at 12. Again, if you add Christie's number to Haley, it comes up a potential number of 40 to Trump's 44, with Haley, having a little momentum in the state. DeSantis 7, Ramaswamy 4. But then there's this one poll that's out there, came from CNN. Trump 39, Haley 32, Christie 12. Now, the Christie votes went to Haley. It could be as high as 44 points, and she could defeat Trump if this poll is a correct reading on it. But what's really sad is you look at DeSantis, it's DeSantis 6, DeSantis 7, DeSantis 5. He's right out there. Ramaswamy even beats him in one of these polls. So DeSantis is not finding favor with voters in New Hampshire, in the Granite State. And so I'm wondering, does DeSantis get out? Now then, truly, with DeSantis' whatever he's got, if he were to, if those numbers were to go in Haley's direction, then it really comes down to a pretty competitive race, and the whole thing gets to be a bit more interesting than what it looks right now. Right now, it was looking like it was going to be a coronation of Donald Trump, and it may well be that in the end. But if these people keep falling out and Haley keeps picking up more numbers, then it can really come down to a two-person race, and who knows what happens. Haley's job, she wants to not suck in Iowa. She wants to do really well, maybe even win in New Hampshire, then go to South Carolina with a win under her belt and see if you can keep the mo going. And that's her state. She was the governor there. But Trump doing very well in all. I mean, when you look at the numbers, Trump is like in most of these other states, he's 30 or 40, in some cases 50 points ahead of the pack, but the pack is winnowing. It's going to winnow down over time. So that's going to be interesting to watch. One of the things I think, though, in Iowa that I'll be looking for is to see, how many people line up behind Nikki Haley. And does she make a decent second place showing that then give her a little bit of credibility as she goes in New Hampshire? And if she pulls off a win there, then I think it's a different game. Look, conventional wisdom, Trump has a good night. Trump could still win New Hampshire, even so. And so, Trump's the guy to beat. But it seems as if out of the rest of the pack, the person who is surging is Nikki Haley. You know who hates Nikki Haley? I mean, apparently with a passion that burns deep within his soul is Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky. who, and I'm sorry for the quality of the audio. Apparently, the good senator from Kentucky has not invested in a windscreen, but he did this little video where he talks about he is in the Never Nikki category.
Good morning, everyone. As I told you yesterday, I'm ready to say something about the presidential race. I've had a long relationship with Donald Trump, and there's a lot to like there. I'm also a big fan of a lot of the fiscal conservatism of Ron DeSantis. I think Vivek Ramaswamy's been an important voice. Also have listened to and met with the independent Bobby Kennedy. I'm not yet ready to make a decision, but I am ready to make a decision on someone who I cannot support. So I'm announcing this morning that I'm Never Nikki. And if you go to nevernikki.net, you can let her know that you're not a supporter either. I don't think any informed or knowledgeable libertarian or conservative should support Nikki Haley. I've seen her attitude towards our interventions overseas. I've seen her involvement in the military-industrial complex, $8 million being paid to become part of the team. But I've also seen her indicate that she thinks you should be registered to use the internet, that people posting ideas anonymously. I think she fails to understand that our republic was founded upon people like Ben Franklin, Sam Adams, Madison, John Jay, and others who posted routinely. For fear of the government, they posted routinely anonymously. And I think her failure to really understand that, or to think that you should register through the government somehow for the internet, is something that should disqualify her in the minds of all libertarian-leaning conservatives. So I'm announcing today I'm Never Nikki. You can go to nevernikki.net and sign up and show her that you're Never Nikki also. Thanks.
All right, so there's Rand Paul saying, he definitely doesn't want to be seen as in any way endorsing anything that Nikki Haley does. Rand Paul, where are we on the mix of Republicans, Democrats, and independents? Pretty interesting story here from the Gallup organization. They do a poll every year that tries to get at, are you an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat? And there's a lot to be drawn from this, and I want to share some of it with you because, I've made the case. I get yelled at a lot for doing it, but I'm right. That to win a national election, you have to bring along the middle. Now, you may not like that idea, but that's the way you win elections, is you have to bring your side and, a good portion of the people in the middle. You have to make that case to them. Because independents are the largest party, the largest ideological group in the country. Political independents continue to constitute the largest political bloc in the U.S., with an average of 43% of U.S. adults identifying this way. 27% say that they are Republicans, and 27% this year say they are Democrats. So with Democrats and Republicans, coming in at 27%, you have to win all of your folks and then a good portion of the middle. Independents outnumber supporters of both major political parties since 1991. And the group that has gone down over time, it seems to be more, the independents go up at the expense of Democrats more than Republicans. Independent identification was up 2 percentage points in 23 compared with 22. And there was a 1-point decline in both Democrat and Republican identification. A lot of people decided that they wanted to not be called Democrat or Republican, but they wanted to be called independents. Now, then they go on to say, okay, they take the people who are independents and they ask them the question, okay, you say you're an independent, but do you lean more toward the Republican side of the equation, or do you lean toward the Democrat side of the equation? 45% of U.S. adults identify as Republicans. 43% say that they lean toward being a Democrat. So, again, the evidence is that the United States is a center-right country. Then they go on to say, okay, decide where you are on the liberal to conservative spectrum. On average, 36% of adults considered their political views to be conservative. 36% said that they were moderate, and 25% said they were liberal, which does bode well for Republicans, that they were probably be able to bring on more independents than the Democrats will. Certainly at this point, right now, that would seem to be the case. 22 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. You know, when it comes to large home repairs, many times homeowners pretend they don't want to see the warning signs. They're afraid of what they might learn. And, as, you know, when you're talking waterproofing, foundation repair, yeah, I can get that. But here's the truth about it. It could be something big that must be fixed. It could be a small problem that will become bigger if you don't fix it. Or you might find out that it's not much to worry about. The bottom line is you don't know, and you don't want to be sold something that you don't need. And that's where the good people at United Structural System come in. They have over 25,000 satisfied residential customers. And here's how they do it. They come out to your house. They take a look at what's going on. They just solve your problem. Here's what you need to do, and here's what it will take. And if you decide to go forward, no high pressure here. They'll lay it out for you and tell you what's involved. And if you decide to go forward, you don't pay a penny until the job is done, and you're completely satisfied. And customers are satisfied. Listen to some of these responses that they've gotten. Here's Constance. Excellent experience. Put me at ease with the entire process. Jeffrey, the service was A+++. On top of all that, the work they did actually solved my problems. Jerry, this is the best crew we've ever had do work on our house. Best I've ever seen. Very professional. Did an excellent job. They will do an excellent job for you as well. USS, they guarantee their best, serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, Northern Alabama, online at USSTN.com. And here's the number, 615-488-7855.
A government shutdown possible yet again. Some crime right here in Tennessee, and a case that the Supreme Court's hearing could affect millions of workers. We'll tell you what it is. 5:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Maury's Wide, Wild World of Sports. Here's the host of your program. You know him, you love him. You can't live without him. The incomparable. There is no one else like him because he's incomparable. It's Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hello, Mac.
Hello. Happy Friday. We made it, guys.
Yeah, we did. We made it. And we're glad that we got there. By the way, before we get into this deeply, I want to remind folks we'll be doing Phone Your Farb Friday coming up right after the news with Mac Maury. So get your thoughts together. Round 2. Let's see if we can do better than round 1. They were a little lackadaisical. They were a little weak.
Oh, come on.
I think you can do better.
Succinct, to the point. Bring it. Let's go.
Yeah, bring it. I want to know what's on your mind. Okay, Mac, what are we going to be talking about here today on Mac Maury's Wild World of Sports?
So a couple coaching updates. We've been, it's just been a coaching frenzy this week. The whole carousel shifted. Bunch of candidates, bunch of vacancies, college, NFL. Well, we covered the Nick Saban retirement here. He now does have a replacement officially. Kalen DeBoer from Washington. Only been a head coach for 3 years, but was just, in the national title game up against Michigan and obviously lost, but went undefeated up until that game, beat multiple ranked teams, really built that program up quickly in just 2 years. Has a fantastic record as a head coach. So that's an exciting development there for Alabama. And then in the NFL.
Do you think that Saban had any say in that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure he was part of those talks. But there were a bunch of candidates that I think didn't really take the offers or didn't really take the job as seriously as maybe some thought. Dan Lanning posted a video, head coach of Oregon, making this sort of a recruitment pitch. There were a couple of other coaches that said, you know what, I'm going to stay where I'm at. So I don't think it was exactly the herd of candidates that they thought they were going to have here.
I think it's one of the situation, like I said the other day, where you don't want to be the guy that replaces Nick Saban.
Exactly.
There's an old saying about this in broadcasting that you never want to replace a legend.
Yeah.
Yep.
You want to replace the guy who replaces the guy who replaced the legend, and because the comparisons will be many, and it's difficult to walk in behind someone who is absolutely in the world of college football. I mean, he's the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time.
No, I mean, you're taking up a position where Kalen DeBoer could go 9-3 next season, and that's a disappointment for Alabama fans. That's just 3 losses. That'd be great for Tennessee as a Tennessee 9-3. Let's go. Come on, good bowl game.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's just a different standard. And then in the NFL, we talked about the pro GOAT coach, Bill Belichick, and his parting ways with the Patriots. They found his replacement today. Longtime linebackers coach, drafted by the Patriots organization, played 8 seasons there, worked his way up, Gerard Mayo. And it came out today from Ian Rappaport that was apparently in his contract, that he was going to be the successor of Bill Belichick, which that's an interesting dynamic to have when you're Bill Belichick and you have a guy under your staff that is going to take your job whenever that happens. So
wow.
Yeah, so they went with Gerard Mayo. So Mike Vrabel will not be in New England next season.
Okay, so now let's talk about the Titans. Where are we?
Yeah, lots of interviews. They interviewed Brian Callahan today over Zoom. He's the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals have obviously had a lot of success these past couple of years and a booming offense, anchored by Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and a couple other good wide receivers. So Callahan would be an interesting choice. The only, the reason I'm a little trepidatious there is just because he doesn't really call the plays in Cincinnati. And that's a little, he could be the greatest play caller of all time. Who knows? He just hasn't called the plays. So that's a little interesting there. He's obviously has good schemes. But yeah, I imagine within 2 weeks, Brian, within 2 weeks, we'll have a name.
Yeah, because there were several candidates that they're interviewing over the next several days, right?
Yep. Yeah. This weekend's
not wasting time.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Good. All right. Well, it's time now to put back on the news hat because it's time for the news to be followed by Phone Your Farb Friday. It's time for the news now on Super Talk 99.7, 531.
5:31, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 50 degrees and a wind advisory in effect until midnight tonight. Could see gusts of up to 55 miles an hour. Also, snow possible Sunday into Monday, as is single-digit temperatures at that same time. For the Nashville area, anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches. Full weather forecast, latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, House Republicans once again threatening a government shutdown if their own elected speaker doesn't throw out a bipartisan spending deal. Andy Field has the latest on the ongoing inability to pass a budget bill.
There are conflicting stories on that overall budget deal. House Speaker Mike Johnson claims
hard-won concessions to cut more billions, as you know, from the IRS giveaway.
Which Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer last week said was not the case.
We gave the IRS new tools to audit the richest of the rich who don't pay their fair share. All these tools will remain in place.
Just a week left to do something to avoid a partial government shutdown.
And back in Tennessee with a crime story, 21-year-old Jervon Kirchhoffel, a Zaxby's employee in Madison, was arrested yesterday after he allegedly took a picture of an underage coworker in the restroom. The 16-year-old girl was in the bathroom stall when she saw a phone hovering over the stall, taking a photo. And Kirchhoffel has prior charges of sexual battery against a juvenile. He now remains in jail on a $15,000 bond. And the Supreme Court will hear a case that could affect millions of workers. It involves Starbucks and unions. Here's Andy Field.
The case involves Starbucks workers in Memphis trying to form a union and that coffee chain firing them. The lower court had ordered Starbucks to hire them back while they asked the National Labor Relations Board to mediate. Starbucks arguing they could fire the workers for cause immediately. The Supreme Court will decide if courts can step in to keep those and similar jobs while the NLRB reviews the case.
And that is the latest news. Traffic, weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, it's 5:38 now on Super Talk 99.7. We'll call it 5:39. And look what time it is. It's time for that thing we do every Friday. After we do the news on Friday at the bottom of the hour, it's a little thing we like to call Phone Your Farb Friday. Hey, that's right. We want to know what's on your mind. So do you have a bee in your bonnet, a burr in your saddle? Do you have a bug in a place where we hope you really never, ever have a bug? Hey. Well, get right on the line right now and tell us what's on your mind. 615-737-9986. That's 615-737-WWTN. There we go. Now we got some people calling in. I mean, that last hour, they were sort of a dead bunch. I don't know. And I never want to talk bad about a previous hour, but I think we can do better in the 5 o'clock hour. Phone lines are open. We'd love to. And maybe you want to take umbrage with something you've heard. Maybe you've got something that you just really got to get off your chest. Climb up on our 100,000-watt soapbox and let her rip, Tater Chip. We'll let you have your way within boundaries because it is a family show, and we don't want to have to push the red button. 615-737-9986. Let's start with Max in Springfield. Max, you're on with Brian on the drive. Max, what's on your mind today?
Brian, I don't have a burr in my saddle or a bee in my bonnet, but I just want to tell you, my friend, I really enjoy your show, and I know that you're going to Iowa. And years ago, I played in a band, and we played 2 weeks in Iowa in the middle of the winter. And as we were leaving, one of the residents said to me, "You know what Iowa stands for?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "It stands for I oughta went around." And so I just thought you might think about that when you leave freezing to death. I hope you have a good trip.
Well, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to being there, but I got to tell you, I'm not looking forward to the weather. I've told it before. The overnight low on caucus day Monday, -18. The high, -3. The wind chill factor somewhere between -22 and -37. Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be rough. Really, honestly, that may be the real story, is that nobody's going to the caucus because it's just that cold. How about John in Smyrna? John, hello. You're on with Brian on the drive. What's on your mind, John?
Hey, so with all the illegal immigrants and the fact that the only thing Biden has done for them is let them in the country. He really hasn't done anything else for them, probably as much as Black Lives Matter has done for black people. And then Trump saying the first thing he's going to do is deport them, I think can shoot him in the foot. I think what he should do is heavily incentivize those that want to come forward and say we're here illegally and, have some kind of incentive package for them, as well as a heavy deterrent for those that don't turn themselves in, and then
but you're talking about a form of amnesty, basically.
No, not amnesty. No, because they can turn themselves in and get sent back, but they're on a list.
Ah, I got you.
So I think that if he comes at it this way, he might actually grab the illegal vote from Joe Biden's hand.
Well, listen, I'm not sure that the people who've come into this country, I know the Hispanic vote is not looking very favorably upon the Democrats and the Biden right now. I mean, if you thought that by having this policy you were going to ingratiate yourself with the Hispanic community, you need to be disabused of that notion, because a great number of Democrats who are Hispanic are pretty upset with what he's done. They understand, they came the right way. They played the game. They did it correctly, and they don't like people shortcutting the thing, and they're not liking what's happening in their own communities. But thank you for the call, man. Appreciate it. Jerry in Murfreesboro, you're up next on the drive. Hey, Jerry, what's on your mind today?
Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Tim Burchett. I think he was on Dan's show yesterday morning. I think that, they call it Potomac fever. Just something happens to our representatives, whether Republican or communist or whatever. Once they get to Washington, they they do everything for themselves. In the state of this republic, I mean, we're you know, you hear it all the time, you know, we're about ready to lose or whatever. I think we're pretty much on, like, the last throes of it. So, but I wanted to give a shout out because Tim is probably one of the few of them that actually even care. And that's all I wanted to say.
He definitely walks to the beat of a different drum, doesn't he? I like him a lot, and he's been on our program as a guest too. By the way, he's real big into this UAP thing, trying to get the truth about unidentified aerial phenomenon. Right now on Capitol Hill, there's a huge closed-door, high-level security meeting with members of Congress where they're supposed to get some of the true answers about what really is going on and how much the government knows about all this. It should be pretty interesting to watch. We've been waiting to see if any stories emerge from that. Haven't so far. Adam in Mount Juliet. Adam, you're up next on the drive.
Hey.
What's on your mind, Adam?
Well, Brian, I told him I was looking for Matt Morey.
Well,
hello.
Mac Morey is standing by. What's your question?
Is it Mac?
Yeah, Mac. Yeah, like the burger.
Mac. Oh, I'm sorry. All right, Mac Morey. All right. Well, so Mac, I was just curious, what is going on with the? I've been so busy working, I just haven't been able to keep up. What is going on with the Tennessee Volunteers? Are they having any of their coaches being poached? What's going on in the portal with them? I'm sure they're active there like every other team. What news can you share with me and the rest of the audience about what's going on with the Tennessee Volunteers football team?
Yeah, man. Yeah, one of the most exciting off seasons for the Vols, as they'll have a 5-star quarterback. I mean, that's first time in over a decade they're going to have a true 5-star quarterback start for them. Nico Iamaleava, 6'5" sophomore.
Say that 3 times real quick.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the play-by-play guys are already rehearsing, and it's talking about poaching players. Man, they poached a 5-star recruit that was in between Clemson and Georgia, wide receiver. Can't really recall his name right now. So, yeah, Tennessee's looking good next year, and with a Saban-less Alabama, who knows, could be on board for maybe a 10 or 11 win season.
Could be a big year. All right, thank you for that.
What about coaches? Are we losing any this year?
Not that I know of. No, I don't think we're going to be in the portal there as far as I'm concerned. Heupel and the staff looks to be staying put.
All right. Thank you very much, Adam. Appreciate it. On to Cedric calling in from Kentucky. I'll be driving through a part of Kentucky tomorrow. Cedric, what's on your mind today?
Brian, I just want to say something right quick. I'm so glad that I've been listening to y'all for about 5 months. I'm glad that you all are really working on getting that border closed, and I'm glad. I never thought I'd hear myself say this. January the 6th, there was an accident here in Kentucky. And one of my best friends, an illegal immigrant with no paperwork, no license, anything, ran in the back of one of my best friend's cars, pushed the back end of the car up into the driver's seat, broke his 2-year-old son's spine completely in two. They just pulled the plug on him on Tuesday. He died, and his daughter is in Vanderbilt now. They're trying to get her to where she can walk again. As of Monday, I think it was, they have turned him over to ICE. So I'm hoping that, some type of justice gets done out of that situation to where they can try him in Kentucky and that something can be done about that situation. So,
well, listen, Cedric, what a sad story. And again, we got a lot of folks coming in here. We don't know much about them. We don't know, I don't know the specifics of this particular case, but again, what a sad, sad story. And yes, listen, we have got to get this under control. Really, honestly, it is impacting so many different parts of our country right now. We've added as many people as, live in like a number of states coming across the border illegally. It's really, it can't help but have an impact on society. Let's see. How about, let's go to Mike in South Pittsburgh. I'm sorry. What's up, man?
Well, there ain't no saints around here. I'm going to tell you that right now. Hey, I just wanted to make a comment about these people ragging on Trump for overinflating his properties. And my question is, where does Hunter Biden and his paintings come in?
Yeah.
You want to talk about overinflating something?
Yeah, listen, that's a great comparison. Look, what is a piece of property worth? You don't know until you sell it. You may think it's worth this, and then somebody else may look at it and say it's less than that, but it's subjective. It's sort of like art, actually. What is art worth? Well, it depends on what people are willing to pay for it. But in this case, the artwork was really just a vehicle to send money to Hunter Biden for his legal fees. And by the way, there have been recent stories that have come out that said that they do know who bought the paintings. They weren't supposed to. That was the way they were going to keep themselves, ethically pure in the matter. But apparently they did have information about who bought those paintings. How about Rich in Smyrna? Rich, you're up with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Rich?
Hello, Brian.
Hey.
I don't have a B or a burr or anything like that, but I do have is it just me or? And that is it just me or does Joe Biden sound like he graduated with honors from the Tommy Smothers School of Debate?
And may he rest in peace.
I'm telling you, Tommy was great, man. I loved him.
Yeah, I did too. And, I grew up watching the Smothers Brothers on TV. They were radical. I mean, what was interesting about Tommy Smothers is that he played the dumb one. But according to everything that I've read about the Smothers Brothers, he was the brains behind the operation. He was the guy who had the rapier wit and the real talent. And he was, he played dumb, but he was anything but dumb. And that was an interesting show. You know who was one of the top writers on that show back when it was on? It started as a summer replacement, the Smothers Brothers show. Or maybe I'm wrong about that. But one of the top writers on that show was Steve Martin. I mean, how can you go wrong with that, huh? I mean, honestly. Do I have time for maybe one or more? One more? Let's go. Okay, let's see. Let's go to Michael in Smyrna. You're on with Brian on the drive. What do you say, Michael?
Hey, I was calling to kind of just ask around, in 2022, everybody expected a red wave for the midterms, and it didn't exactly happen, and everybody, seems to be pretty hopeful that it's going to happen this time around, but, what may be different this time, and, what could change from 2022?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the red wave thing, honestly, that was a surprise to a lot of people. One of the things I want to tell you, though, is that there is a phenomenon in politics that a great number of people don't make up their mind until the last day or maybe the last hours. And so I think that may have happened in 2022. And it happens, I will say that right now, when you look at Biden versus Trump, if that were to be the matchup, it's tightened in recent days. There were some polls out there for a while, and there's still one poll out there that says that Trump will run away with it by 8 points, but I'm not sure that may be an outlier. Most of the polls say it's very, very tight, and I think it has tightened. But the bottom line is you can't really rely on polls because they are, well, first of all, they're a measure of popular vote, and we don't elect presidents with popular vote. We elect them through the Electoral College, so that sometimes the popular vote doesn't matter. And then the other part of that is there are people who change their minds at the very last moment. That's one of the hallmarks of Iowa, is that they change their minds maybe at the very last second, that there are a lot of late deciders. So you never really know. And as I say, well, the polls are all good and fun to watch, but let's see what happens in Iowa when the people actually have a chance to have their say. Listen, great round. Thank you so much for all the calls. Greatly appreciate it. 53 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock.
The Justice Department announced today that they're seeking a death penalty against the Buffalo supermarket shooter, Peyton Gendron. We'll keep you up to date on that. A toddler death in Tennessee and a home gets struck by lightning. Those stories at the top of the hour. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
So Mac Morey making an appearance in Phone Your Farb Friday. That's a first.
How about that?
Yeah, the
that
guy
was pretty fun.
wanted to check in on your expertise. And,
Honored.
Listen, it was a good round. I don't know what happened in the 4 o'clock hour. I think the people were asleep. I'm actually going, is this thing working? Hello? I don't know. But the 5 o'clock, they redeemed.
Oh, yeah.
redeemed
Very spirited
themselves.
bunch.
Yes.
Very spirited bunch there in the 5 o'clock hour thing. I do enjoy that segment every week because you never know what you're going to. It's like walking a tightrope.
Yep.
As when you're the host, you're walking a tightrope. You never know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But we thank you so much for participating. We love it when you play along with us. Listen, we got 1 more hour to go here on the drive, and then speaking of driving, I'm getting ready to drive all the way to Iowa. I'll talk about some of my Iowa experiences, and we'll talk about a lot of other stuff coming up in the next hour. It is 58 minutes past the hour now of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
Six o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories, and we are weather aware this weekend. Possibly dangerously cold, possibly dangerously windy as well, especially tonight. Wind advisory in effect for the next 6 hours until midnight. 55-mile-an-hour wind gusts possible. Single-digit temperatures possible on Sunday, and as is some snow, expecting anywhere from a dusting to 2 inches in the Nashville area. We'll keep you up to date right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A full forecast. Latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. The Justice Department announced it's seeking the death penalty against Buffalo supermarket shooter Peyton Gendron for plotting the hateful and racially motivated killing of 10 black shoppers in 2022. It's the first time Attorney General Merrick Garland has pursued the death penalty in a case. Michelle Franzen has reaction from some of the victims' families.
Several victims' families and survivors of the Buffalo supermarket attacks had pushed for the death penalty. The Justice Department seeking the death penalty against shooter Peyton Gendron. Federal prosecutors say the racially motivated killings of 10 black shoppers warrants capital punishment. Zanita Everhart's son Zaire survived the shooting and supports the decision.
They should hear all about the manifesto and the guns that he used and modified, and the country has to hear that.
Gendron pleaded guilty to state charges and is already serving multiple life sentences.
Crime in Tennessee. A 5-year-old in Memphis accidentally shot and killed himself this morning. The 5-year-old boy was rushed to the hospital, did not survive. Officers detained 4 people at the scene, and police say that you can pick up a gun lock at most any police precinct. Staying in the volunteer state, a husband and a wife were inside of their Gallatin home this morning when it got struck by lightning. Channel 4's Marissa Sulik tells us how they're dealing with it.
The good news right now is the couple, both of them, are okay, but this is the damage they are dealing with. And you can see from the outside right here, you could see that frame of the roof. The siding was just completely ripped off, exposing that wood, and now they have debris on their ground. But the inside, that is a different story. Check this out. It knocked out their drywall, and you can see the insulation was ripped out from it. units. The power was also all blown out, too. The sockets are now black, and they will be out of power for a while. It's going to take a lot of work to redo the wiring. Now, as for the husband, Curtis said he was in the kitchen. His wife was closer to the strike. She was in their home office upstairs.
They were both uninjured, and they'll have to live somewhere else as repairs on that home continue. Crime in Tennessee. 25-year-old Cameron Moore has been accused of pulling a knife on a guy on Broadway. It was Wednesday of this week that it happened. The victim says that Moore came up to him and asked for money and a cigarette before pulling out a toy gun and threatening that victim. Moore was later found with a knife on him and now has a $10,000 bond. That is the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is 6 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. And boy, we're got a sort of a weird situation with the weather right now. In that right now, I mean, here in bucolic Watertown, 50 degrees. I mean, what do you got there in Nashville? Well, 49.
52.
You got 52. I see on my app it says 49. But I mean, around 50 degrees. And that's, for mid-January, that's not bad.
Pretty good.
Yeah, but there is a Arctic air mass coming our direction. I mean, it's already starting to get cold over in Memphis. It's coming our way. It's going to hit here a little bit later. We're talking about 40 to 50 mile an hour winds tonight. And so you need to batten down the hatches. You need to make sure that, everything is, because I tell you that first round that we had the other day, I didn't batten down all the hatches, and boy, stuff got blown over. I did recover the inflatable flamingos on the pool.
Oh, you did find them.
Yeah, we found them. They're back in their proper place. But I saw that they got blown around again today. And so, it's gonna get cold. Now, look, right off the bat, tomorrow, it'll start out cold in the 20s, but it'll rise up to 43. Sunday, in the 20s overnight, but it'll get right up to about freezing mark. So, that's not great, but, it could be worse. I think it really starts to get cold on Monday. First, that's Martin Luther King Day. I'll be in Iowa there. But the temperature overnight will be 17 degrees, rising to a high of around 24, and some snow.
Yep,
is possible. If somebody commented on the super text line, they know where everybody was in the 4 o'clock hour. They were in the grocery store getting milk and bread.
That's right.
And toilet paper. That's where they were. Tuesday, the overnight low is really brutally cold, 6 degrees with a high of 17. Wednesday, abundant sunshine, and the overnight low is 1 degree and a high of 27. And then it gets a little better, Thursday and Friday, they're talking about, again, a chance of snow next week. 21 for the overnight low on Thursday, 37 for a high. Friday, 11 degrees and some snow, but a high of 30. And then by the time we get to next weekend, the weekend after this one, there's another Arctic air mass apparently coming.
Wow.
And it'll be one of those things where it's abundant sunshine, but cold as all get out. The overnight low will be 6, the high 18 on Saturday. And of course, that's a long way off. It could adjust some between now and then. But Sunday, an overnight low of 5 and a high of 25. So we're in for a spate of cold weather.
Yeah, everyone that's been asking where winter is.
Well, it's coming.
It's here. Well, on the way.
But get ready because the wind is going to pick up, and this air mass is going to come through here, I don't know, pretty quick. And there could be some rain to go along with it. I don't think we'll see any snow, but I'm telling you, it's going to get cold. Not as cold as where I'm going, because you talk about this being the drive. My drive begins at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm headed up all the way through St. Louis up into Iowa, and will arrive in Des Moines, if everything goes well, by about 2 o'clock. I don't know. I may be running into some weather as well. So it could be a long, painful drive to Iowa. And then we'll be doing our broadcasting live. If you don't know, we're covering the Iowa caucuses. And I don't know how you could have missed that by now. but I'm going to be on. I just found out I'm going to be on in my old station in Washington in WMAL early in the morning. Apparently, they're not sending anybody to Iowa. How about
they
that?
got you.
Yeah, they got. Well, why should they get it? Because they got me to go up there and be stupid enough to get into the minus 37-degree weather. But no, I mean, do that. And then I'll be on the Dan Mandis show. I'll be on the Chris Hand show. And I'll be on the Matt Murphy show. And then I'll be doing my show live from there. And my hope is, what I'm trying to work out, is I would like to be in a caucus location. Do the whole show from a caucus location. And I have one in mind, and see if I can work out the logistics of it all. And the idea would be talk to people as they come in the door. And by the way, you never know, at some of these bigger caucus locations in Des Moines, candidates do show up. I mean, I was in a church 2016, and Marco Rubio walked in the door, and he came in and made his own pitch. Usually you have surrogates who make the pitch for you, but, sometimes the candidate makes it by there. And by the way, he won the night in that particular caucus location. They were so wowed by him that they all voted for him. So it can have a real impact, and you can really influence a lot of votes. And Rubio came in third in Iowa that year. Ted Cruz won it. Donald Trump came in second. He came in third. But he did sort of keep his campaign going by having a respectable third place showing in Iowa. And part of that was just showing up and talking to people and asking for their vote. And when you ask, you often get what you have. So that'll be that. But it's going to be cold. The overnight low on caucus Monday, before we get into the morning hours, minus 18. That's the actual temperature. But don't worry, it'll get a lot warmer throughout the day. It will rise to the balmy temperature of -3 by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
That's nothing.
But it's the wind chill that'll get you. It's never the temperature, it's the wind chill. The wind chill factor will be somewhere between -22 and -37. Now, that's just, apparently they say it will be warmer in Antarctica than it will be in Iowa on Monday.
Man, that wind, I could. That's the type of wind they say will cut right through you.
It will. It will. I mean, and you can really get hurt in a hurry with that kind of wind chill factor. You've got to make your time between the truck or the car and the house as quick as you can possibly make it.
Yes.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that can kill you. So again, one of the things that I think is going to be now, Iowans are a hardy bunch. And this is not unheard of up there. This is pretty bad as it goes in Iowa, but it's not unheard of for the temperatures to get very, very cold in Iowa in the wintertime. But will they venture out on caucus evening with the wind chill factor -20 to -30? I don't know. It's going to be a great question to ask. The last time that I worked for Fox News and I was in Iowa, boy, that was a bad experience. What happened was I was back in D.C., and I had not been originally chosen to go on that particular trip. But then one of my colleagues, the late Wendell Goler, got sick. And he was, that year there were a ton of Democrats touring the state, and he had been following Bill Bradley around. And they said, Wilson, Wendell Goler's sick, get on a plane, get out here. You need to take over for Wendell. We're sending Wendell home. I said, okay. So I jumped a plane. I got to Iowa, made my way out west. Way out east to catch up with the Bill Bradley campaign in a bowling alley. And I covered that, and that was all good and fun. And then I got sick. I got dead, really sick. Whatever was going around, I got it pretty quick. And within a day, I lost my voice completely. And so, I called, and my producer finally called. It says, you've got to go. You're sick of running a fever, and you have no voice. You're no good to me. Get out of here. Go back to Des Moines. So they called, and they said, well, we got a cab that's going to drive you from Cedar Rapids into Des Moines. Cedar Rapids to Des Moines. I said, okay. So I got to the cab, and I looked at the cab driver. I was feeling bad. I had a pretty good fever, and I had no voice. So I sort of croaked at him. I said, I'm not going to be much fun to talk to. I'm sick as a dog. Just get me to Des Moines. And so I laid in the back seat. I just laid down in the back seat and went to sleep. And about halfway to Des Moines, the cab broke down.
Of course it did.
Of course it did. And the guy said, I'm sorry. I mean, I can't. So I get on my phone and I called. I say, this cab that was driving me back to Des Moines has died. Well, don't worry. We'll send you a cab from Des Moines. So they hired another cab to drive all the way out to where we were in the middle of nowhere and pick me up and drive me. So, what should have been a pretty short trip, really, turned into like a 6 or 7 hour ordeal. And I finally get into Des Moines. I check in at the headquarters and I say, give me my keys. I went to the bar. I got a double bourbon and Diet Coke. And I went to my room and I slammed them both and went to bed. And actually, I started to feel better the next morning. My voice started to come back a little bit. And I actually was able to go ahead and report. They sent me out to do some reporting that day. But I wasn't great, but I struggled through it. But I was glad to be done with my Iowa experience when it was over and go back to D.C. But, that it's a brutal, brutal existence out there. It's flat mostly, and it's usually there's snow on the ground that has been there for a while and doesn't ever melt because it never gets to the point where it can melt. And the corn stalks have all been cut off, so there's just this stubble everywhere. And you're chasing buses around. It's a brutal existence, and will be doubly so for the folks who are going to be out there in these unforgivable conditions. of Iowa right now. I mean, these they're going to. I think most of the candidates have decided today that they weren't going to try to travel because there were blizzards, and so they were doing the thing where they would do a Zoom call instead of being there in person. It's nothing like shaking a hand and being in person, but the one thing you don't want to do as a candidate is get out in the boonies somewhere and get stuck. Have your bus get stuck in a bar ditch somewhere. And, buses aren't the best things to be in when you're driving in snow anyway. So I certainly understand that. Well, we'll be there. I'll arrive about 2 o'clock on Saturday. I'll spend Sunday trying to stay warm and trying to collect some sound. And my goal is to be Monday for our show at an actual caucus location. I've got wireless microphones and wireless headphones, so I can, once I get set up, I'll be able to roam and talk to people, and it'll be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a good broadcast if everything goes as I hope it does. So I hope you'll tune in. Again, thank you to Busy Bee and the folks at the Charlie Daniel Journey Home Project for supporting our trip and sponsoring our trip. And I'll try to bring you, firsthand. This is where we find out. Were the polls right? Were the polls wrong? Did the weather have an impact? The people will speak for the very first time in the 2024 cycle, and we'll be there to bring it all to you from Iowa. And then I will be driving back Tuesday and coming back into incredibly bad weather here in Nashville. It's like I'm leaving Iowa. Thank goodness. Oh no, wait! The weather has followed me all the way back to Nashville. It's going to be cold. It'll be cold. Have you weatherproofed your house yet, Chris?
Yeah, I kind of keep mine that way most of the year as far as I keep the little foam covers over the spigots outside just because I know I will forget if I don't leave them on there all the time. So I keep them on there. That's pretty much all I have to do is at my place, luckily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I got a great note today. We have a guy that comes and helps us with our pool because I don't want to be dealing with chemicals, and he comes out and checks it, and we've let our pool run. It's heated, so you get a halfway decent day. You can still get in the pool.
Yeah.
It's 85 degrees. It's not bad. Yeah. So the guy sent me a note saying, you know what, you need to make sure your pump runs all night long when the temperatures really dip down low, because if it stops in the middle of the night, and I had it running about half a day it'd run, half a day it'd be off at night. But if it stops in the middle of the night and then the pump freezes, then trouble. You're out for a brand new pump. Because it will destroy that pump. So I had to go make that adjustment. I hadn't even thought about that, and that was a good catch by that guy. And then we have a little pool house out there where it's not heated at all, and we have a sink and a toilet and all that kind of stuff. And I want to make sure, so I took a little heater out there, put the little styrofoam thingies on the spigots.
Yep.
And tried to batten down the hatches for the 40 to 50 mile an hour wind. So buckle up, everybody. And I can't imagine what it's like at the grocery store right now.
Well, I did get a text that said they were at a Kroger, I think, in the area, and said it was fairly normal. But of course, we do have a couple of days before things
the
get ugly.
The really bad weather is not here yet. That's right. Yeah, and we are heading into what for many people will be a 3-day weekend. So
that's true. Yeah.
That's true. All right. It's 20 minutes now past the hour at 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you about the folks over at Eurofix. And, there are a lot of diagnoses out there and a pill for everything, but not all diagnoses are accurate and not all pills are actually good for you. When you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, you really should get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home of second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis that somebody gave you, you might want to run by Eurofix. It might save you your vehicle's life, may save you a lot of money. Listen, at Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. There are no high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. At Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. They have locations, are you ready? Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and their newest location in Mount Juliet, right across the street from the Dairy Queen. Call 844-EUROFIX, that's 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEuroFix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you. I just happened to be watching my monitor here in the studio, and DeSantis is being interviewed on Fox, and he says he's going to skip New Hampshire and go straight to South Carolina, suggesting that he's going to stick in it for a while. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It would be good to. There's no reason for him to go to New Hampshire because he's doing horribly there. So maybe he's going to try to make some ground up in South Carolina. We have some jobs reports this week, and, the Biden administration has been trying to put lipstick on the pig, saying, listen, it's, maybe inflation went up a little bit, but don't worry because the prices are coming down. And we're focused on it. We're doing everything we can. Anyway, story from Fox News. 5 ugly details the Biden administration won't tell you about the December jobs report. First, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported an increase in non-farm payrolls of 216 in December, which beat Wall Street's expectations, but that increase comes on the heels of November and October being revised down by 71,000 payrolls. Boy, they're awful big on the revising down. You see, when the number comes out and it sounds good, there's a lot of coverage of it, and then nobody even notices when you revise down later. It's a little game they play. 1/3 of the jobs allegedly added in December were ones they thought they already had. That also means the December report didn't beat expectations but missed them, and those downward revisions to non-farm roll payrolls happened for every month in 2023 except for July. They've been playing a game there. The second red flag is the unemployment rate. At first glance, a steady rate of 3.7% sounds good, but it wasn't in December. The rates stayed low because about 680,000 people left the workforce and were no longer counted as unemployed. The labor force participation rate fell all the way back to where it was the previous February. In fact, the labor participation rate has never recovered to its pre-pandemic trend following the government-imposed shutdowns. So these numbers don't really mean enough if you don't really know the background. Third on the list is the kind of jobs being created. They're all part-time. Last month, the economy shed a whopping 1.5 million full-time jobs, the biggest monthly plunge since 2020, when the government made it illegal for people to go to work. That wiped out essentially all the full-time jobs that had been gained in 2023. So, again, there's more. Fourth, the supposed job growth last month was disproportionately government jobs. Yeah, the government's hiring, but nobody else is, counting for about 1/4 of the total. That's troubling because you need private sector jobs to support a single government through one tax revenue, and the 3-to-1 ratio is insufficient. It's simply untenable. The fifth concern, they say, is from the BLS data was that native-born workers have been left behind for the last 3 years. The employment level of these Americans is 1 million below its pre-pandemic trend, while foreign-born workers returned to their pre-pandemic trend over a year ago. In fact, the 130 million native-born workers employed in December was about the same as it was in July of 2018, which means no ground has been gained. So they may try to put lipstick on the pig and try to make you think that everything is just hunky-dory, but the bottom line is you have to read the numbers and you have to have some sophistication about the way you interpret these numbers. The Fed president says that March is probably a little too early to expect a rate cut after this hot inflation report. This was Cleveland Fed President Loretta Mester. I think March is probably too early in my estimation for a rate decline because I think we need to see more evidence. I think the December CPI report, which shows there is more work to do and that the work is going to take restrictive monetary policy. See, boy, the Biden administration is going to be putting a lot of pressure to make sure that you try to get the interest rates coming down during the election year. But you can't do that too soon or you go back to where you were. And what you have here is the Cleveland Fed saying, I don't know that we're going to be able to do that in March, like some people are hoping maybe by May. So, high interest rates are going to be there for a little while longer, it would seem. It is 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 38 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock, wrapping things up on this Friday evening before the wind hits. It's 48 degrees, but we're expected to have much cooler temperatures and a lot of wind here before long, ere long, as they say. So, buckle down, batten down the hatches, get ready for some rather unseasonable weather here. And then the real cold doesn't really get here until Monday, Tuesday. And that's when you need to be ready. But you have
snow comes in, and then the cold comes.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. Not as bad as Iowa, but bad. I mean, for us, we're not used to this nonsense. I want to go through a whole bunch of different stories that I just haven't had time to get into the show yet, and in the last minutes that we have, I want to make sure we hit some of these because I think they're important stories. The United States and the state of Texas are at loggerheads. The state police has apparently taken control of a city park in Eagle Pass. The mayor's not happy about it, but neither is the Border Patrol, because when the Border Patrol went down there to start processing people down in this park, is apparently where a lot of people, queue up to have their interaction with the Border Patrol. The Department of Public Safety, and I guess the Texas Rangers as well, maybe even the Texas National Guard, I'm not sure, said, you can't come in here. There was a standoff between law enforcement from Texas and the Border Patrol. Now, I bet you the rank and file Border Patrol agents say, okay, fine with me. I don't really care, because, they're fed up with what's going on down there. But the Border Patrol writ large, not happy about it. And so there was an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court by the Biden administration, saying they're not playing nice with us. They're telling us we can't come into these areas. They're blocking us from doing our job. Listen, I love Greg Abbott. I love the fact that he's willing to, just stand there and in defiance of what they're trying to do down there. And enough is enough. You can understand the frustration and why it might come to this. But, you don't want to mess with the DPS, and you don't want to mess with Texas Rangers. There's an old saying in Texas, one riot, one ranger. And I remember as a young man, growing up in Texas, running into some of these Texas Ranger characters. They were bigger than life. I mean, they wore these great Western cut suits, and they were all huge. I mean, every one of them I met was 6'2" or better. Big guys, just massive people, just the kind of guy you would not want to tangle with. And so I was introduced one time in a sheriff's department to a Texas Ranger who worked out in West Texas. And I said, I've heard all kinds of stories about Texas Rangers. I said, I hear that you have like a small arsenal in your trunk. He said, that's true. I said, can I see it? Yeah, come on out. He took me out back, raised his trunk. He had bazookas in there. I mean, he had everything. He had AK-47s. I mean, this man had some serious weaponry built into a specialized rack in the trunk of his car. I mean, anything you could imagine. Shotguns. I mean, just everything. And then I said, and I've also heard that you guys are allowed to, let's put it, tinker with your engines on your squad cars, on your cars.
Really?
Said, yeah. And I turned around. This Texas Ranger's car had hood pins.
He's serious.
He pulls the hood pins up, and I mean, it is decked out. Those guys are serious, and the reason they say that thing about one riot, one riot, one Ranger, is the old story goes is that there was apparently some kind of worker revolt or some kind of trouble down in South Texas, and the mayor sent a telegram to the governor way back. And said, we're having trouble down there. Please send the Rangers. And they said, okay, Ranger will be arriving at noon on the train. So they go down to meet the Ranger at noon, and the Ranger gets off the train. And he said, where's the rest of you? He said, they just sent me. He said, they just sent one? He said, one riot, one Ranger. That's all it took to straighten it out. That's a great story. I've always thought I would love to do a book, write a book about the Texas Rangers. They are something else. Anyway, a standoff between the State Patrol and the Texas Rangers and the Border Patrol. And let's see what happens. Does the Supreme Court decide to get involved or not? We haven't spent a lot of time talking about it, but the United States has hit more than 60 targets that belong to the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. We've really gone out. We're sort of in a low-grade war, proxy war with Iran. We're going after the Houthi rebels, but because they've been attacking our troops in the region with missiles and all kinds of other stuff. So we're doing it and going after them, and in a bigger way. Us and the UK, our British counterparts, are involved in this as well. The story in the Wall Street Journal: U.S.-led Yemen strikes heighten risk of broader Middle East conflict. Yemen's Houthi rebels responded defiantly to U.S.-led strikes against them Friday, saying the attacks had failed to cause significant damage and that they remained undeterred from launching more attacks on U.S. and international targets in the region. All American and British interests have become legitimate targets for the Yemeni armed forces in response to the aggression. Houthi spokesman Mohammed Abdul Salam said more attacks in the Red Sea were imminent. This will not deter us. The attacks, primarily on shipping lanes, would continue in solidarity with Gaza following Israel's invasion. By Friday evening, a Panama flagged ship said a missile had splashed into the Gulf of Aden about 400 to 500 yards from its location, about 90 miles southeast of Aden, a port city in southern Yemen. The ship also reported seeing 3 small boats pursuing it. A Houthi official said he couldn't confirm the missile, but said this group had begun its response to the American-British attacks. Honestly, until we bop Iran on the nose, this stuff is going to continue. Lawmakers, and apparently fellow Democrats especially, are very upset that President Biden did not consult with them ahead of the Yemen strikes. In the Washington Times, key lawmakers, including some fellow Democrats, blasted President Biden for failing to consult with Congress before ordering U.S. airstrikes against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And they warned that the president risked dragging America into another open-ended Middle East war. Biden was visiting Pennsylvania today. He's got to win Pennsylvania, and he's going to spend a lot of time there. And he got a rude welcome from some swing state voters who mercilessly heckled him during his trip. The 81-year-old commander-in-chief was met with shouts of, "Go home, Joe, you're a loser," by residents of an Allentown area house as he walked into a bicycle store, according to a Pool report. Hours later, protesters opposed to Biden's support for the Israeli offensive against Hamas vowed that he'd pay the price at the ballot box in November. So they were yelling at him. No vote for Genocide Joe, they said. The president made the trip without delivering prepared remarks ahead of a weekend getaway at nearby Camp David, Maryland, of course. While he was away, fencing contractors spotted near the White House preparing for a large anti-Israel protest on Saturday after a massive group of activists shoved onto the executive mansion gates in November and vandalized them with red handprints. They're putting up the special fencing around the White House again. So there you go there. Tennessee news. There is a Tennessee representative who has proposed a bill, I love this idea, to prevent expelled lawmakers from returning to the seat for 4 years. This happened last year with the Tennessee 3, made national headlines after 2 members were expelled for violating House rules during a gun control protest at the state capitol. However, they were quickly voted back into their positions. This week, Representative Brian Ritchie, according to Fox 17, introduced a bill to prevent similar situations in the future. His proposed amendment: anyone expelled from the General Assembly would be barred from running again for 4 years. It could lead to legal challenges, according to some, but I don't know. Similar measures are present in Alabama, where they set the standard for, great legislating, I think. Democrats, of course, hate the idea, but it really, honestly, if you don't care enough to follow the rules of decorum in a legislative body, and you get voted expelled, you ought not to be able to come back the next week. And just to do it all over again. And already in this new session, it's barely gotten started, and already the Democrats are making a bunch of noise. They had to gavel down some of the members of the Tennessee Three because they got out of line, tried to insult the speaker, said he was drunk with power, and so they struck down his words and refused to let him finish his speech. Listen, they want to just disrupt. They don't want to do anything productive. If you want to come and you want to legislate and you want to be, the problem is that, it is a supermajority of Republicans who control the House because we're a supermajority Republican state. Sorry, win more elections or shut up, That's what I say. Hunter Biden did a complete flip-flop today, said, you know what, I think I will testify in a deposition, a closed-door deposition after all. So his attorney, Abby Lowell, sent a letter to the chairman, Jim Jordan and James Comer, and said, if you'll just reissue that subpoena, we will accept the subpoena and we'll show up for a closed-door deposition. Now, why did he flip-flop after the big dog and pony show where he walks in, sits down in the middle of the hearing, and all that chaos and the defiant thumbing of the nose? Why did he flip-flop? I suspect that the White House told him, we don't need this distraction. We need this to be more quiet than it's being because, it just reflects poorly upon us. And we understand that you're trying to make a nice documentary and all, but come on. So the question is, would Comer and Jim Jordan accept that letter and just have him come in? They say no. The subpoena that we gave you initially is valid, and we expect you to be there. So they're standing their ground. And so, will Hunter Biden, fold like a cheap suit and show up? I think that's the real question. We are heartened that Hunter Biden now says he will comply with the subpoena. Make no mistake, Hunter Biden has already defied 2 valid lawful subpoenas, the both said in a joint statement. While we will work to schedule a deposition date, we will not tolerate any additional stunts or delay from Hunter Biden. The American people will not tolerate, and the House will not provide special treatment for the Biden family. So we'll see where that goes. Meanwhile, real quick, Jim Jordan has launched an investigation into the Fulton County Special Prosecutor, Fannie Willis. Remember, she hired her lover, Nathan Wade, to prosecute this case, and has now been the subject of subpoenas in the upcoming divorce trial for Nathan Wade. Paid him $654,000 to prosecute this case, having had no experience as a prosecutor, and then went out and spent lavish vacations with some of the money that she gave to him to prosecute the case. I mean, it's unbelievable, this stuff. But apparently, Jim Jordan now conducting an investigation into that matter. 51 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk.